I'll give you a brief outlook what's going to happen today. I will first of all show you guys some priming videos. What these priming videos is, it allows you to get a glimpse of the inner world, the panoramic world, that's the world around you, and the world that exists outside of the panoramic. And I'm doing that because in order for me to access those parts of your thinking process to be able to safely navigate you through the courtrooms, you're going to have to kickstart that. The other element of it is the corruption that's found in your language. Believe it or not, me and you are speaking a language known as Babel. Okay? And the only reason why you're able to understand me in a fairly cognizant way is because your subconscious is going in and missing and placing all the missing words so it can reconstruct everything that I'm saying and give it to you an accuracy of around about 95%. I am actually speaking to you as I am speaking to you in a language known as Babel. And it is called Babel. Okay? The processes that allows that to happen, the mental processes that allows that to happen is part of the subconscious mind. And that's what I'll be speaking to you to. My personal covenant with you guys is that 5 o'clock when you leave, not one of yous here will ever see the world again as it is. That I promise you. If you do not feel that has happened, take your donation and we call it quits. And that's my covenant with you. What your covenant with me is, all depends upon you, and I'll leave it to you. But that is what I say I'm going to do. By the time it finishes today, every single one of you will have enough information to be able to pull down any judge on this planet. It doesn't matter if it's a low-ranking judge or a high-ranking judge. You will be able to keep him at check at your worst case scenario and dismiss him in the best case scenario, or as a desired scenario, hold him to become a duty-bound, honor-bound fiduciary. Okay? So, with the videos, I'm going to show you the inner workings of the cell. Inner workings of the cell. Something that we know people saw into when they looked down the barrel of a Royal Rife microscope. They were able to pierce the cell membrane and move into intercellular material where they got a glimpse of the world inside of a cell, as complex as anything else. Why do I need to do that? Because I need to reach into those things which you already know exist. Okay? And then I'm going to take you out into the terrestrial world, or by the video, and show you the complexity of your world that you tread upon, and then take you out into interstellar material. And then I'll bring it to a stop, and I'll introduce you to the subject matter today, which is the law. How law works, why it doesn't work, why some people can access it and some people can't. I will teach you how to move in the corridors of kings and queens. I will teach you how to use the same conduits, and they're called conduits, that royalties use, the most vile and disgusting people on this planet use, as well as some of the subspecies that exist on your planet. And I'll introduce you to the world of the species of man and women. You may think of it as psychological type, but like most things, like looking down a barrel of a microscope that only shows you dead material, you have yet to encounter the complexity of the man and women, as known as the species of men and women that exist in your world. Okay? That's what I'll be doing. So I'm going to go straight into the video. What you guys saw there may be perhaps 1/1000th of what actually goes on in the dynamics of what we call a cell. Just probably 1/100000th. That's just my guess. We actually know little or nothing about the workings of anything in our world. Most of us are running around in a world of assumptions and presumptions. And that's where the courts always triumphs over you, because while you are thinking in presumption and assumptions, they give you the assumption, the presumptions, and they just remove it or cancel it out. And hence you take no jurisdiction in a courtroom whatsoever. The mechanism for that is very well known to me. And that's a process that the subconscious does. It's called stand down, and they get your subconscious to stand down. They do it out of pure ignorance. They don't know the workings of it, but they've been trained to use certain words, like sit down. Now sit down. There's no way that you can tell a man or a woman to sit down. You talk to me like that, I'll tear you to pieces. It don't matter where I am. And if I'm in a courtroom, it's almost certain I'll triumph, because a courtroom is a level playing field. It's a level playing field. Nobody ever goes into a courtroom where the tennis player is sitting 10 foot up there and the other guy is 10 foot below subterranean. That's not a level playing field. They are lying to you from the moment that you get a summons or a letter all the way into the courts, where they do what's known as the reaping. And it's called the reaping. And the reason why they reap is because they need to add value to the fiat money that you run around in. And the only way that they can add value to that is to give you some of that empty fiat money, and you convert that into what is known as sweat equity. You've now given it gold. Because the only thing that is worth anything is that which you earn by your own efforts. And they don't do anything for their efforts. That's why they pillage, rape, murder, and so on and so forth. The conversion process, for that conversion process to take place, most of you would understand as the banking system and so on and so forth. How they get it off of you is what most people do not understand. And that is what I'm here also to give you. The mechanism takes place in the courts. These courts have been in existence for thousands of years, where they give you the fiat money, and when you convert that into sweat equity, they take it away from you, either stealth or direct or indirect. Okay? They might do it by VAT, they may do it by income tax, but they will take it off you. Anything up to 90% will be taken off you. A few percentage of it you get to keep. But also, if you are of a particular demographic, demographic comes from the word diabolos, yeah, the graphs of demons. If you make enough of it, they will make sure that your children, you never inherit your wealth. Because if your children inherit your wealth, they will not be able to get the child to work. So they'll strip it from you. The mechanism to do that is very well known. You guys all know it. It's called inflation deflation. Pumping up the economy and then removing the fiat currency where the money circulation is poor. That's one of the mechanisms. The courtrooms are used as a conduit to remove what's known as commercial energy out of you and pump it into those places where they don't have commercial energy, whether that be the Regis, which is the Queen, or the Vatican, or the IMF family. Okay? Those are the mechanisms. Now, I'm going to show you another video. This video is about the terrestrial world. This is a world that you guys walk around in, how beautiful it is. And yet very few people have access to it. 99% of the world population don't have access to their own lands, let alone the things that they grow from it. Yeah? So the reason why I'm doing that is to give you a grasp of how much is actually missing out of one's life. And yet, it's just there, sitting right there. Okay? The other reason why I'm doing that is to be able to drive home the fact that you guys are being raped. You don't see life, you don't get to hear life, you don't get to talk about life, and you never take possession of your own lives. They make sure of that. But by 5 o'clock, that ain't going to happen no more. My ambition is that it's opened you up to let you know that with all this knowledge, nobody here really gets to keep what they make. They're not in possession of their own thoughts. They're not in possession of their own bodies. You don't get to inherit your own wealth, not from your parents, from your grandparents, or anybody else. You don't ever get to speak about the here and now jurisdiction. You express opinions in the past and in the future, but your language does not facilitate anything of a here and now jurisdiction. I'm sure not a single person here has the ability to speak in the here and now jurisdiction. You won't be able to do it. The reason why is because your language is engineered in such a way that you only ever are speaking something in the future. Sorry, that's the future there. I sometimes get confused which direction it is in. You only get to speak in the future, and as we all know, every single person here is an expert in the future, even though they have no possession of it and do not know what's going to happen the next second. And of course, as I meet historians and 1,001 other people that have read books and so on and so forth, they are experts on the past. They can give me a minute-by-minute account of what happened to World War II, what the temperature of the coffee of Mr. Hitler was, and so on and so forth, and they cannot tell me a single thing, not a single thing, what is happening in the here and now jurisdiction, in the first-hand knowledge, first-person knowledge. Cannot do it. 25 years ago, when you got married, your wife was your wife, and you was her husband. That's a farming term. Your wife was given to you as your property, and you are the animal husbandry of that property. That's a farming term. Women, of course, objected when they got to understand that as the women's rights movement took off. But essentially, that's what it means. It means that you're a husband and you're practicing animal husbandry. That's what that is. Let's take those terms and put it in present terms. Your language has now been changed for you, where you are not really husband and wife. What you are is partners, which is a corporation language. It's a language of corporations, because partners exist in businesses. So your wife now becomes your partner, and you become her partner. You think you are speaking language in a language that you think is English, but almost every 25 years, your language is changed for you, almost as if to say you might as well be speaking Chinese or any other language apart from the language that matters. The correct word for your husband or your wife is your mate. That's the language of nature, your mate. And the reason why, and they have all these things in legislation and statutes and so on and so forth, the reason why you cannot inherit your health, that's what my speciality is. The reason why you cannot inherit your health is because you're a human, and human beings are monsters. That's their definition. You'll find that in the dictionary, Bullentine's dictionary. You are a monster, and a monster may not inherit its wealth. It shall not inherit anything. Not the blood, and not your children, your offspring. You have no offspring. Okay? In corporate jurisdiction, your children are the property of a corporation. And that's what a child means. Yeah, that's why if you take the child out of school without the corporation's permission, they fine you. Just as a factory worker would be fined for breaking, shall we say, factory laws. Essentially, the land that you're living on at the moment is the law, or known as the policies, of, let's say, Ford Works. Yeah, that's what that is. You have no access to law, you don't have access to anything except mitigation of policies. So when you go before a court, it's usually, the court is a corporate court. In a magistrate or any other court, it's usually a corporate court. And they treat you like an employee, yeah? Which is, whatever the policy of that day is, of that factory floor, is what you're given. And it is about money. It's about exchange of your sweat equity to remove it, so you are always kept in perpetual work. Okay? At this stage, I'll take a couple of questions because I've made some very profound statements. As the day rolls on, I will qualify each and one of those statements. Any questions? Random questions is perfectly fine.
Usually Salat child means.
Sorry, I beg your pardon?
Salat child means.
It's a property of a corporation. Yeah.
What's the question, sorry?
A child, what does a child mean? It means it's a property of a corporation. There have been many, many cases where a corporation, whether that would be a company, will take over a child. Yeah. A very famous case was twins. The advertising agency used those twins and then just claimed that twins as their own. And the parents couldn't get it back. They could not get it back. And after 25 years, they managed to get the twins back, but under terms and conditions. How does this happen? How does this happen? It's because you guys have no law, you have no codes, and you don't have access to those avenues and venues. Okay? When I started off this, the studying of the law and so on and so forth, I decided to hold seminars for Jim Humble to bring his technology into Britain. And I knew the moment I did that, the newspapers, the pharmaceutical industry, which are exceptionally vile, they have a history, and their history, this is the pharmaceutical industry, their history is in the Dark Ages, when they burnt all the witch doctors and the witches and so on and so forth. They weren't witches, they weren't doctors, they were healers. And they took over their industry. Something that they do to this day is just that you don't know it. Because in those days it was acceptable priming to say these people were witches and possessed of demons and so on and so forth, because they always was healthy in times of hardship and so on and so forth, because they knew how to look after themselves. So the nation was primed to believe that they were witches and so on and so forth. Yeah, and very easy to burn. It is incredibly easy to convert anybody into believing anything. That is why the stratification of beliefs in your world is so absurd that human beings, which means monster, will go to any lengths to practice their beliefs and any length to protect those beliefs. You just name one and you'll find a particular point in history, not so far away, where that's what they've practiced. It doesn't matter what it is, however absurd it is, it's happened already. That's the length people will go to protect their beliefs. Okay? There is a reason why for that. The people that run your secret societies, the head of the Freemasons, what's known as Master Masons, and there are many others as well. Jack Otto wrote about a particular group of them. Look it up, Jack Otto, in his book, World War III. Okay? What they do is these are the people that engineer your language. And that language is so very, very important. The reason why it's so important is because this is what enables your mental processes to take place. Okay? I'm going to put a full stop to that, and I'm going to come into an analogy. This is a hardware, and I'm going to liken this hardware to the hardware in your brain system, the CPU of your brain system. Okay? Like for like. What creates this laptop? What gives it animation, okay, is the operating system. To bring that hardware, that static hardware, life, give it life as it were, it needs an operating system. That operating system in this particular laptop is called Ubuntu. And I can't pronounce it properly, but one of you can probably help me pronounce it.
Ubuntu.
Thank you very much. I always call it Ubuntu. I don't know why, but it just rolled. That's what I call it.
That's something else.
That's what this operating system is. It takes up a very small percentage of the hardware in there. A very small percentage as opposed to the rest. And it works seamlessly. It requires no antivirus, no malware, no nothing. It's hack-proof, and nothing can get into it because it's worked on a kernel. A kernel that's mathematically sound. And that kernel is the operating system of that laptop. Once installed, it will just keep running as long as this hardware is okay. It doesn't get overheated and so on and so forth. It requires no updates. It's completely free. It will take a few hours to install. And it will do everything all the other softwares enable you to do. But it will do it for free. Okay? Let's step back a little bit. Let's say you now have a Macintosh, or that's what we used to call it nowadays, Macintosh, but you'll know it as an Apple. It operates on a Linux, which is essentially this. And he came along and said, well, let's make it look a little bit more interactive, a little bit more sexy, a little bit more aesthetic. Yeah, but let's not corrupt the kernel. Let's keep the kernel, but let's just make the hardware look very sleek. And that's how he makes his money from it. That's a very sound business model. Then another business model comes along. It uses the same hardware. It takes the near-perfect operating system, which is free, and at the very core of it is the kernel, and it's called a kernel. And there they go in and corrupt that kernel. And once you corrupt the kernel, you have to constantly feed that kernel to keep it safe. It requires 1,001 industry to make that kernel operate. It requires malware, antivirus, upgrades, so on and so forth. It's the perfect business model for making money. You take what it works perfectly fine and you corrupt it and you live off the corruption. That operating system is called Microsoft. Microsoft. And anybody that understands finance would know you will have to support Microsoft, because any corrupter of anything is where the money is. So let me parallel that with, say, Monsanto. You have a seed, no matter what seed it is a perfect kernel. It can replicate itself trillions of times seamlessly without any fault. It requires little or nothing, sunshine, water, and a little bit of soil, and it will do its business. They come along and they go into the very kernel of it and they corrupt it. And it requires 1,000,000,001 industries to support the corruption of it. Because if you consume it, you'll become ill. The plant is ill. It requires fertilizers, it requires pesticides, it even requires something to make it germinate, which is known as terminator seed, known as terminator seeds. And they spray that in your atmosphere. What is it that I'm getting at? Interfere with the kernel of an operating system, and you have corruption in your hands, and you can live off that corruption for the length of that lifespan of that business. Okay? Now comes you and me. What gives yourself access to your memories, your thinking, into the world of the subconscious and then the unconscious? What is it that gives it that operating system? What's that called? Have a guess. It's your language. It's the words that you use. The words that you use is what enables your brain to go into the right places to access and retrieve the information that it needs from this vast space that it has, which is known as the unconscious. It will retrieve that and bring it out for you, and it will show you the answer. You corrupt the language, you are forever seeking an answer. That's known as a rift between the conscious and the subconscious mind. Hence, human beings, or man and woman, is an empty vessel floating in a sea of space. Maritime expression. Maritime expression. If I found a vessel floating in a sea of space, and if I put my ideology, one example, or my cargo into that vessel, I can claim it as my own. And it doesn't matter whether it's one religion or the other. But they have put an operating system into that vessel and they claim it as their own under salvage. Look it up. It's under salvage. They actually have a law to be able to do that. You might understand it as canon law. My job here is to remove the corruption from the operating system. Once you remove the corruption of the operating system, you are now in possession of your own thoughts. Your thinking becomes so accurate that the answers you require will be retrieved from this vast space that it has. Okay? And it has huge amounts of data there. At this moment, you're unable to access it because of the cancelling out words. There are cancelling out words in your language. When Miller, Federal Judge David Wayne Miller, Wynne Miller, beg your pardon, I mix up words occasionally because I speak a language called Babel, you see. When he pointed out those things which he found, it swapped a lot of things in my head. For example, any vowel followed by two consonants means the very direct of what you think it means. For example, like Aborigine. AB, as you know, means no, abnormal. You get that word and you put it in and you call a person an Aborigine, it means no origine person. And this level of corruption is everywhere. And there are millions of these words floating around in your head. They cancel you out. So you think you are speaking a language, whereas in fact you're moving one step forward and one step back. And they just live on that corruption. For example, if I make an accusation, I put you in an impossible situation where you have to defend your accusation. Well, what do we call that? They ran those courts in Spain, and they killed a lot of people over that.
Inquisition.
Sorry?
Inquisition.
Thank you very much. I can't hear properly. You'll have to shout it out properly. What's it called?
Inquisition.
That's the world that you're living in at the moment. Yeah? Because their language now slightly changed and they call you a defendant. They bring you in as a defendant. And if you take possession of that word defendant, they get you to believe, and you are forever, forever defending yourself. An impossible situation to do so. So, let me just get a little bit antagonistic. Why are you so ugly?
It's just a reflection of you.
It's a reflection of me. That's a witty answer. That's a witty answer. So, now that I know he has wit, let me see if I can catch him out in other ways. Why did you park your car there?
I walked. I don't have a car.
He walked. He's a pedestrian. I can't place any claim upon him because he's really quite good at deflecting me. That's called deflection. He's using deflective techniques. Okay?
Next one.
So, if I send you a parking ticket and I say you owe us £50 for parking here, and I put you in a situation where you have to defend yourself, you now have to defend yourself while you parked your car there. Can somebody tear that to pieces for me?
Sorry, Mark, could you repeat that, please?
I sent you a parking ticket, Ray. You parked your car outside of your house where it's a double yellow line because I put that there last week. Okay? You owe me 50 quid for it. Can you defend yourself, please? Why did you park your car there? It's a double yellow line.
Are you actually parked?
Sorry?
Are you actually parked?
Sorry?
Are you actually parked? Are they putting a label on you that might not be true? Are you assuming you're parked because you stopped?
Yeah. They're letting you take presumption. Letting you take jurisdiction of your presumption. Because parking means to leave your car and go. That's what parking means. So if they pull you over and they accuse you of parking there, no, I stopped there. And as the judge of this vehicle, because that's what your license allows you to do, navigate maritime expression, it is you, with your own volition, your thinking, have stopped there. And you don't have the right to question me, because I'm the judge of this vehicle. Go away. You are no longer a defendant, you're in possession of your own mind. You know there's the difference between a parking and stopping. That type of questioning is known as a leading question. It's a leading question. I'm not actually asking you anything. I'm actually telling you, and then putting you in an impossible situation where you're defending yourself. So, when I draw up my papers for people, this is what I do. I say, he who makes the claim provides the evidence. He who makes the accusation provides the evidence. He who makes the statement qualifies their statement. Full stop. And that full stop is very important. Because if you are not in possession of your own thinking, you're constantly running in your mind and justifying your position. Who am I? I'm a man, full stop. If you want to make a claim with me, show me the evidence, full stop. One sentence, one meaning. One sentence, one meaning. And every sentence must have a fact. If I make an accusation, I must provide the evidence or leave. Okay? Full stop. And that full stop in your thinking process is very, very important. It is so important that if you ever try to justify your position, I've got you, because that's called mitigation. Because if you mitigate as to why you are doing the things that you're doing under your own judgment, that means you're not a judge. You don't have the capacity, the facility to be able to think in your own mind that you're a judge. Okay? Means that you are not in possession of your own thoughts. So, those people that have gone into court will know, if they're gone in conventionally with the assumption that the judge is there for their benefit and the benefit of justice, you will quickly know when you come out you've just been raped, you've just been buggered. I think it's one and the same word. You have been damaged. You have been anything but what you thought you went in for. And you thought the judge was there to create a level playing field where you're going to have equal rights, where you're going to have equal time, and they're going to make sure that everything is safe for you. That doesn't happen, does it? It never happens. One of the tricks that they use to be able to move you out of your frame of thought is an interruption. It's called an interruption. It was taught to them by these NLP, whatever you call it. NLP started off as a really good stuff to help people, yeah, to develop the person, the man, the woman. But they use it to interrupt. One of the ways that they interrupt your frame of thought is just simply go like this. Or to intimidate you, security. Yeah? Or to get their gavel and smash it on the table. All this is a facade. If there is an element of fear in you, it will grip you. Yeah? It will grip you. And then, of course, you're no longer in possession of your own thought and your own mind. And then they got you. So, what is an interruption? How does it work on a psychological level? How does that work? How many of you, by the way, have seen some of my presentations? Hands up, please. Well, thank you very much. All right. So one of the things I do there is I draw a box, an ordinary two-dimensional box, and I get everybody to look at it. Yeah? And I say to you, keep looking at it, it'll change direction. That's what happens, doesn't it? The box changes its elevation, whether that be a side elevation, left elevation, or right elevation, but it changes dimension. Your brain's ability to be able to sift through, to be able to turn the image around for you to get another elevation to it, is the activity of your subconscious mind. When that happens, it swaps, and that's called a trance state. If you catch a person while that's happening, you can put them into a subconscious state. You can hypnotize them like that. Click of a finger. Yeah, very easy to do. They take those things which nature gives you and use it to corrupt, just as Microsoft will do with the operating system, just as Monsanto will do with their seeds, their Terminator seeds. The entire thing is a corruption. And they're able to do that because of the constant lying that they perform on you. Constant lying. So when that box is changing, you're now seeing things in a different way. Now let me give you an example. You are making a statement, you are making a case with me. And you've put your case really quite beautifully. And you've got me to see exactly what you want me to see. Guess what I do? I come along and interrupt his train of thought. It just swaps, just as that box swaps. Now he's talking about something else. And I can do that verbally, or just by giving you the impression the case is dismissed. Nothing of the sort has happened. These are purposeful disruptions that they place upon you in order to take away your frame of thought. Okay? Everybody up to speed as to what I've just said? When they do things like that to me, I get a little bit cheeky. I become witty. And I say to them, because I know what that courtroom is, I say to them, do you require help with your binding? I have some maritime rivets here. Would you like to bind your documents together? Like I have. And I'll show it to them. Yeah, I perform the same trick because I'm like that. I'm a bit cheeky. I like cheeky things because I'm not frightened of them. The reason why I'm not frightened of them is because thanks to David Wynne Miller, he taught me the bureaucracies to be able to safely navigate your way into any courtroom, and it doesn't matter which courtroom, because all courtrooms on this planet are one courtroom. They are one. Yeah, it doesn't matter if it's in Antarctic, it doesn't matter if it's Britain, it doesn't matter where it is. If it's got a letterbox, it's one jurisdiction. Okay, so the bureaucracy that allows me to safely maneuver into their court and say what I need to say in a dignified way, with a little bit of witticism, because you like to have a little laugh and joke as well, and to be able to safely move myself outside of the court, where I'm not going to be threatened with security, which they can call, and I say, well, thank you very much for the security. Thank you very much. I will use them when I need them. That tells them, you are not in control. I am in control of this. Full stop. Yeah? The bureaucracy is very simple. It's so simple, it's always in front of your face. And now comes what will appear as absurd statements. These people that corrupt the language go out of their way. They go out of their way to tell you the truth. Out of their way. And if they can't get the truth out to you, they'll make documentaries to get the truth out to you. In fact, it's at the very core of their disturbance. If they do not put things into plain sight, your subconscious will pop out, because it can spot everything and anything. Your subconscious has the ability to see 18 kilometers away, smell everything in this room, just as my pet dog once could. He passed away. I kid you not, I kid you not, guys, the activities of the subconscious mind are so keen that it is just like your pet dog. It has all the senses it requires to be able to safely navigate yourself from this point to that point using your own senses. And if you lie to it, just as a lie detector test will point out, your subconscious will pop out and say, liar, liar, liar. Fight him or make flight. Run away or, flight or fight. Okay? So it's really important for them to be able to constantly put things in the open jurisdiction, and that's known as open flags operation. And they'll go to great lengths to even use the right words. Terrorism attack. Terror means Tara. It means earth. Earth attacking you. There's only one people that can say that. That's usually your government. If it was somebody else attacking you, they will tell you so. It was a guerrilla attack. A guerrilla attack. They would use the right words. They would say, for example, they blew something up. They would make sure a bus was diverted, and on front of that bus, it will say terrorist attack. This is a terrorist attack. Those people that are clever or scholastic minded will say, I spotted it. I'm clever than you are. You've just destroyed the very thing that they have trying to tell you. They have to constantly tell you the truth. If they don't tell you the truth, your subconscious will pop out and say liar, and it will work out the entire configuration of the lie and say, here's the evidence. Now you're convicted by your own hands. Now, the reason why I can get away with the things that I do and nobody really attacks me, not the courts. Character assassination attacks, yes, they do that, is because they know their game is up. I know what their game is. I know their language. I know the operations that they use to shut down the subconscious mind. I know the words, the bureaucracies, the entirety of it. I know it so well, I can refine it for them if they want. That's how well I know it. Yeah? I knew I had to protect myself. Okay, so I learnt their law, and I learnt it 1,000 times better than they know it. 1,000 times better. That's quite easy to do, because it's a bloody lie. It's a lie. You have law, but you don't have access to law. I know what the law is, and it's about an A4 piece of paper. How long does it take me to read that? Then you have statutes, which are volumes. And what are statutes? They're status. They are statues. Statues. Lifeless things. What is a legislation? It is a leg of a statue. These are the literal meanings. What is an act? It is an act of a statue. It's acting out. Their job is to make sure that you do take jurisdiction of statutes, where you can just babble and babble and babble and be found guilty, take your money and leave, if you are not in possession of your own thoughts. Because he who makes the accusation provides the evidence. You are now back into the jurisdiction of the law. That's the law. I can't come along and say, you owe me £500. Where's the evidence for it? I need to show contract has taken place. That contract doesn't exist. The claim has to be vacated, does it not? Agreed?
Yes.
Unless he is silly enough, and he is very silly, he writes back to me and says, well, I don't really owe you £500. As far as I know, it was never £500. He's just made contract with me. Now we go to court as to how much I'm going to get out of him. That's called contract. So I say to him, he owes me 500 quid, judge. I want that 500 quid, and I want 150 pounds for being here, and cab fare and so on and so forth. It's now 250 on top, so it's 750. Because he was silly enough to make contract. The rest is now just mitigated until he puts a full stop to it and says, he who makes the claim provides the evidence.
So what are you talking about there, Mark? Are you talking about a counterclaim?
No, they're not counterclaims. They're nothing of the sort. They're not counterclaims or anything.
Does it make a difference if I sign some kind of term or agreement and they show me something with my signature?
I'll come on to that in a minute. So, full stop. Next subject. I'm going to go back in a little bit of time, because as you know, I'm an expert in the past. I have a minute recording of it, but I know nothing about the past. I'm making little sarcastic jokes now and then to just give you an idea how the scholastic mind can work. It creates a reality which does not exist. Once you're in that reality, you will not be able to escape it, because all you'll be doing is mitigating how ignorant you really are. Never get yourself into that position. I get a document through the letterbox, and it asks me to sign my name on it. Okay, I'm quite law-abiding, I'm quite happy to sign it. It's making me some sort of an offer. I have no idea what it really means, but I sign it. And a signature is a cursive. A joined up writing is called cursive. When you place your cursive in that rectangular box, that's your coffin. And you have put your cursive into that rectangular box, which is your coffin. And a cursive is the language of dead people. It means to do evil upon people. And it's the language of the dead. Full stop. Now let me qualify that statement, how profound a statement that really is. As you know, all of yous are dead. And have no mistake, you are dead. Because every mailing you get is all in all caps. You are all caps. You are dead people, just as in a gravestone. Yeah? You are floated dead under maritime law of bankruptcy. Because you don't ever get to keep your wealth, your gold or anything. It all belongs to the people that are floating your country. All caps is what you find in gravestones. Is that right? How do I get you to take jurisdiction of the fact that you are dead? I engineer the language, get you to believe you are incapable and you don't need to perform an autograph. I'm not going to ask Angelina Jolie for her signature. I'm going to ask her for an autograph. Because an autograph means an autonomous person, man or a woman, in possession of their own thought. The graph is the graph of your autonomy. That's why it's called an autograph. But I get you to sign. What does that mean? It means that your subconscious, that knows all these words, know what an autograph is and what a signature is and what a cursive is, because you've been primed to do so. It's all in your language. And they just choose the language that they want you to take jurisdiction over, and that's the operating system that you guys run on. So you run on the world of all caps as floating dead people, putting your signature upon things, and so on and so forth. Okay, it's your language. And the language is going to be altered today, so they no longer can get away with such things. To explain further how corrupt and the length that they've gone to alter your language is also, if you are floating dead people, you will not ever see life. You will not see life. You will never hear life. You will never speak of life. You will make no contract with each other, and you shall have no covenant with your God. Those are the 5 things that are engineered into your language. How do they do that? When's the last time any one of yous has drawn up contract with each other, where you have come upon something and you agreed upon that's what you're going to do? Anybody here can do that? Draw up a contract for themselves with another person? Congratulations. Anybody else? Oh, Mr. Carl there as well. How many of you have seen life, as it were? How many of you have seen life? How many of you have seen intercellular matter? How many of you seen red blood cells or your cells under a microscope? Put your hands up a little bit more, please. That's quite a lot of people. And hence, probably that's why you're here. In your medical fields and in the NHS, samples of any living tissue is forbidden. In fact, when Rife created his Royal microscope that can see living tissue, living cells, they burnt his laboratory down. Yeah? It's really quite important for them that you never see life, because if you see life, your subconscious kicks in.
Wow.
It kicks in. How many of you think, for example, that the Earth is a greenhouse floating around in space? How many of you believe that the earth and the air that you breathe and so on and so forth is a finite thing? and that oil, oxygen, air, water is all finite, that it's all going to run out. 99% of the people will believe what they are told. So, just to give it a little bit more example, to the extent that they go to, they will get a philosophy of global warming, tell you that the earth lives in a greenhouse and that you guys are locked into a greenhouse when there is no glass in the sky, and they'll come up with these all wonderful ideologies. And they'll create another group that goes for global warming or global cooling. And the two tribes, and it's known as the two tribes, go to war with each other. You remember that, don't you? Yeah? The global coolers went to war with the global warmers. We call that the bread and butter wars, because I went to war over his country because he butters his bread on the other side, which is, I know, is the wrong side. It's called bread and butter wars. And these wars are running all the time in your world to keep you divided, keeping you believe this is the right side and that's the wrong side. And while that's happening, they'll slip in between that, global engineering, known as climate control. While your eye is off that and off that, warring with each other. That's called Fabian philosophy. They do that with armaments and so on and so forth. So would you guys now agree there's a great deal of engineering going on in the world of ideology, in the world of language? Okay? I was listening to a video by Karl Lentz where he was talking about words, wordplay, parliaments and so on and so forth. And he was pointing out, say a man or woman goes before a judge and says, I suffered rape. Case dismissed. Because what does suffer mean? Sorry?
Consent.
I consented to rape. That's what suffer means. Come on to me, little children, that will suffer. It's a biblical term. It means to do by consent. You consented rape. That's the language. And your subconscious knows that language. It's your conscious mind that believes suffer means something else, which is the world of assumptions and presumptions. And when you work these things out, they no longer can flip it for you. They can no longer flip the jurisdiction they want you to believe. I did not suffer. I was raped by that son of a bitch right there. Full stop. And here's the evidence for it. Full stop. There isn't going to be any mitigation. Nothing. And you must close the sentence there and then. If you don't, it's quite important, it turns into what David taught me as being a dangling participle verb. There is no closure. And now I'm going to talk about closure. When you draw up a contract, or when you have anything, it doesn't matter if you're navigating from this point to another, it must have closure. Without that closure, the workings of your conscious mind doesn't translate into your subconscious, it doesn't travel through. It must have closure. If I ask something of you, I must provide you with closure. If you make a statement, you must qualify that statement and put closure to it. So since this is law, this is about drawing up contracts, you write the contract that you want, and to create closure, you add a dictionary to it. Because the word that you say is what it means. And there is no there is no interpretations. If you remove the interpretations from your language, did you just disqualify the need for a judge? Don't really need you. We've qualified what we're talking about. It requires no interpretation, no judgments, no opinions. Judge means I'm an opinionator. If you look up the word opinion, it means judge. It will say a few other things as well. For example, that it's a bank and a banker as well. And we'll get into that later. If you add a dictionary to your contract, a judge cannot get in between you and the other person because you are defining your own words. Does that make sense?
Yeah, question. What do you mean by adding dictionary? Can you clarify that, please?
How many words do you want on this page? How many words do you want on it for whatever you want to say?
As minimal as possible.
How many words? Give me how many words?
10?
10 words. Okay, define each one of those 10 words, one meaning, one word. One word, one meaning. Full stop. And then you bind it, international maritime law, and it becomes a document, and it requires no judgment whatsoever. That's how you draw up contracts. Very simple, but you cannot draw contracts because all of your priming is all about how dangerous it is for you to draw up your own contracts. In fact, it's so dangerous, this is how the devil gets you. But if you look at the details of those films that have those type of characters, you will see quite clearly all the devil wants is for you to be correct. That's all he wants. But they will say it's the devil that puts you into contract because they want to rob you of the ability to make contract with yourself. Because if you make contract with yourselves, with each other, you've removed the need for judges.
Sorry,
Does that make sense? Just give me a second. You guys are okay with that? Okay, so what was your question?
So you know when they give you a contract and it's written in legalese, there's no dictionary attached, is there?
And what's that called if I don't add a dictionary to it? No closure. Under
Open to interpretation.
under maritime law, and any law, you have to create closure for people. But there is no closure in your world. There's no closure in your religion. There's no closure in the amount of money that you have to pay to the government. There's no closure to anything. And when you do make a closure, which is to exit this planet, there's no closure on that either, because the government comes in and takes their due. What's the word? Their penny. Yeah? There's not any closure in your life. The language that you're writing at the moment and speaking is called art. Articles. A-R-T. And what do we call artistic writing? Poetry. They got you writing your contracts in poetry. And as you know, poetry is open to 1,001 interpretations. And the one that converts into the most amount of money to me, because I'm the judge in this room, is the one that I'm going to choose. And as you know, if you look at judge, it will say look up bank. And then it will say look up banker. And then it will say look up judge. Because a judge is bank, banker. All judges are. All judges are. Okay? Now, when I prepare my documents, I prepare it with closure, and I bind it so it goes straight into admiralty law, and I prepare the documents in the front exactly the same way that a judge does. So he knows that I'm the judge of that document. And there is no interpretation. And I give that document value by simply sticking a postage stamp on it. Once I've done that, I have added value to that piece of paper, which now becomes freight. And since I paid for my freight, it automatically becomes maritime jurisdiction and in federal jurisdiction, because a postage stamp is the currency of the federal system. When you go through borders, especially the Middle East borders, and where they don't have much of a bureaucracy in place, and they still use the old turn wheel stamps and so on and so forth, quite often you'll see your visa entry has a postage stamp on it of that country, and it will always be a value of over £1 of their country. Like if you go to Egypt, they just tear off £1, their £1, Egyptian money is £1, and they stick a stamp on it, an autograph, a name across it. That means you've paid for your freight, for your fee to travel from one port to another. That's maritime federal jurisdiction. Everybody, every courtroom on this planet is licensed only by one authority. Every embassy on this planet is licensed by one authority. Every courtroom is a vessel sitting in dry dock. What you have to do is find out what territory it is in. If it's in the corporate territory, it's corporate jurisdiction. If it's common law territory, it's common law jurisdiction. And it could be a Chinese court flying a Chinese flag. And then you know you're in the embassy of the Chinese government. And the Chinese government law applies there. If it's a corporate court, then anything goes. Anything. Anything and everything goes. The only thing that matters is that which is what they say it is. Okay? But when you prepare your documents like this, or some of the people that I've prepared documents for, you win. Because you are the judge, the bank, the banker, using maritime operations, safeguarding yourself in federal law. And you win the case. Or it'll be vacated. And if you don't have the language to be able to safely navigate your way through, they'll just keep it dangling as a participle verb. Okay? Full stop. Some of you's had your hands up.
Well, my question was, you mentioned about the contract. So could you technically, the government have like an inheritance tax? So.
Okay, stop. What have you just told me?
The government have an inheritance tax.
He who makes the statement must provide the evidence. Provide me the evidence that they have such a thing.
They just made it up.
And you took jurisdiction.
So how do you stop them taking the inheritance tax? Can you send them one of these documents?
Yeah. F off.
You're my sort of man.
So on that situation, it wasn't meant to be jovial at all. I was actually being very serious. So you guys took me by surprise when you started laughing. I thought I said something that was funny. I didn't realize I just caught on now. Sorry. Sorry.
Have you ever come across Proceeds of Crime Acts?
No.
The confiscation orders?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can send them packing.
Got one at the minute where they give us a figure what I've got to pay by June the 1st.
Okay. Well, we can discuss that later when we've done all this sort of stuff. If you guys can just settle down a little bit. The reason why is I'll be turning 50 very soon, and 50-year-old people can't hear properly, you know. So if you can just settle down a little bit. I aged terribly. So what was the question?
Can we alter existing contracts?
Sorry?
Can we alter, change, rewrite?
Who's the
I was just giving an example, like a telephone contract, for example, for a mobile phone. Can we rewrite, alter using this?
Can you, may I have your permission to answer you indirectly? He's asked me permission. I'm now the judge, thank you very much. In my system, I have his serial number, and I punch up the serial number and I can see how much his bond is worth, and whether I can tap into it. Come in. He's just given me jurisdiction. He's asked me a question. He hasn't actually asked me a question. He's asking permission to alter it. Who did you make the contract with? If both of you agree that's what it is, then that's what it is. And yes, you can do. How many of you guys use credit cards? I use credit cards quite often. Yeah, they quite often send me new terms and conditions. Yeah? And if I don't apply to it, the terms and conditions I've agreed to. They're essentially asking you for your permission for the new terms and conditions. If you agree to it, okay, that's fine. It's okay. Yeah? If you don't agree to it, the old agreement stays in place, full stop. You send it off. Because you need two people to agree upon these things. That includes your bank and so on and so forth. They can't change the terms and conditions which you entered into. But luckily, from what Miller's taught me, is you'll be able to break that as well, because you will be able to syntax your documents, something that I'll be doing with the government documents, especially the British Medical Board. I'm looking directly into that camera. Syntax that document and disqualify it under Title 18 of making misleading statements, falsifying statements. And I can do that with almost every single government agencies, governments, corporations, and so on and so forth. So, why haven't they vanished? It's because they got all of you believing it is what it is. The pharmaceutical industry, which I'm a massive fan of, sarcastic comment, and I heard no laughter. And this is a very serious comment now. Go to great lengths in telling you how pernicious an organization they are. So much so, they would even tell you the definition for our industry, the pharmaceutical industry, means the preparer of poisons. It means the preparer of poisons.
Where can we find that out? Is that in the dictionary you've made?
Now, the reason why I don't give handouts is because Google will provide you everything that you need on there, and since I qualify every statement that I make, you just press it up on there as I speak. Yeah? Because don't take my word for it. I'm a judge, yeah? Don't take my word for it. Where would you find that? The truth is, you just punch it up, the definition of pharmaceutical, and it'll be right in front of your face, like this entire world. But people don't see it. The flags of operation. They're known as flags of operation. They have to go to great lengths to tell you the truth. In fact, they have to go to great lengths, and the last seminar I did, I made a little joke of a guy that was smoking. On that cigarette packet, it says, "This will kill you." You know, what more flags of operation do you need? If they go to that extent to tell you the truth, fool me once, fool me twice, fool me third time, keep fooling me until I drop dead, is what you're telling them. Just by the fact that they have told you that is in the common domain, and you can access it and say, "Don't want your poisons. Full stop. And if you have any claims over me, who you say is the preparer of poisons, and I am not, you have no claim on me." As long as they can get you to believe they have a claim on you, you will take jurisdiction. But now you know what pharmaceutical means. It means a preparer of poisons. And I must explain to you the lengths of how much they follow the law. because every preparer of poison must be licensed to prepare the poisons. Pharmaceutical, chemist, preparer of poisons. And to the extent that they go to, they say you have to be a doctor. Doctor is a maritime expression. It's the physician aboard a vessel. And his job is always to add value to that vessel. Anything that takes value outside of that vessel is illegal. And that's what they prosecute you for, because you've taken value from their cargo. But if you initiate a physician, because a doctor is a physician as well, he now is on the land, as it were. And he's there to heal you. But you must initiate it, just as you must initiate the fiduciary system. Yeah, it's called the fiduciary system the judges operate under. That's the disguise that they operate under, that they are fiduciaries offering you a level playing field, telling you everything in their language that is the direct opposite of. Full stop. Am I making sense so far? The thoughts that you think with, the words that you think with, is the only thing that your bodies can live out. You cannot walk forward thinking backwards. You cannot. You cannot walk backwards thinking forward. Try it. Yeah? If I was a person in Australia who was born there and lived there for thousands of years, ancestry-wise, I cannot claim to be an Aborigine, because Aborigine is walking backwards. I cannot do it, because my subconscious will draw me away from the land that I stand on. You are an Aborigine, you are a non-origine. You're saying Aborigine. I must make the statement that I am an origine, and I belong in this land. I am this land. I stand on the land. Then you move forward. I cannot say I suffered rape. I cannot say I consented rape, because I didn't. The conscious mind will believe anything that it's told, because it's the one that processes the words. Okay? The reason why so many of you have surface noise, which is the internal rattle, the endless rattle that runs through your mind, is because it's a dangling participle verb with no closure. It's running on poetry and assumptions and presumptions where there is no fact. It's all a belief after a belief after a belief. It's all in your religion, it's in your government, it's in everything. It's in everything. And they call that surface noise. Surface noise. When you start to speak with the simplified words that mean one thing, one meaning, you remove 90% of all words in the dictionary that mean nothing. It means no thing, nonsense, nonsense. Yeah? That is crucial. And you'll find that surface noise that haunts you all the time. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if the judge says this? What if I don't pay the council tax? What if I trip if I'm going down the accelerator? What if I run out of money? What if I don't have my daily bread? It never creates closure for you. That's engineered. You will meet people, especially if you guys are going to join ranks, as it were, some of the teams that I work, and most of them don't have surface noise. They won't have it, because I won't work with people like them. Before we break, one more subject. I'm going to go shopping, and when I go shopping, I'm going to get myself a loaf of bread, a pint of butter, a pint of milk, some butter, and a sausage roll. And that's what I'm going to get, full stop. What I will not do, which is called a negative thought, is give you a list of all the things that I'm not going to get. Because you'll come back 10,000 years later and say, Mark, I need some more time to fill that list. And that's the world that they got you in, which is called a negative state of condition. And you are running on that negative state of condition. Thou shalt not do this. Thou shalt not do that. You shall not park in the car. You shall not make contact with each other. You shall not park on double yellow line. You are not in possession of your vehicle. You're not in possession of your own thoughts. You're not in possession of the here and now language. You are experts at everything except anything. When judges, politicians, attorneys, solicitors, they all take an oath. This is how you would tell if they're genuine or not. Their oath is no fact, and no law should be tried in court. Tried means to try. Try. It should never be tried. Hence, Parliament will never speak of a single fact. A courtroom will never allow a fact in. There are no facts in your documents. When you stand there, they say, all rise, which means they're giving life to you as a dead person out of all caps. And then they put you back to sleep, back to the dead. When the Queen gives you a knighthood, she taps you on the shoulder, just as a voodoo witch doctor would do on the gravestone and say, all rise, sir. And then you're given lands, you're given facts, and you're given slaves, which is known as serf in English language. And there you're allowed to rule. Those are facts. That will never take place in a courtroom. I can have the ability to bring a fact into a court. Once I've done that, the courtroom is nulled. Because when a fact enters, there is no corruption. Also, when you prepare your documents like I prepare my documents, the judge can never play any tricks on you. Never. Because all boxes and all tricks of the courtroom is removed. He cannot play any tricks. If you do, you can prosecute that. I was going to swear, but you can prosecute him or her. There are some people that I've helped out. Do you want to share your story later on? Yeah, that's fine. I didn't know I helped you out in more than one case. This is, can I introduce you? Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Daryl.
Let's stand in and do that. This is, give us your title as well, because you're a dock worker as well, aren't you?
Well,
it's a joke.
My name's Daryl, and I got prosecuted under the 1939 Cancer Act. So basically, we helped about half a dozen or more people who the hospital told that they had cancer, and they possibly would die in 6 weeks or so. One woman in particular, go home and make your will, and you know, that kind of thing, say goodbye to your children. So she came to see me. She's alive now, some 10 years later. She had breast and ovarian cancer, which is pretty nasty. Killed Jane Gooding in a few weeks because she went for the poisons route. Actually, funny enough,
Thank you very much, Daryl.
she contacted me. But anyway, this woman is still alive, and she.
But what I'm saying, sorry to cut in, is sin, is crime, is that he took money away from a corporation. So they prosecuted him, the only person in Britain to be prosecuted, am I right? To be prosecuted under 39 Cancer Act. There's no way that's going to happen. I'm helping him out, have that thrown out, and prosecute them. You know? That is that. So... before we go forward, I would like to give some people in this place a 1-minute slot, no more, 1-minute slot as to their experiences, who they are, what they are. If they can come up here and share that. If you don't want to share it, and you don't want to share it with the camera, sorry, I beg your pardon, if you don't want to share it with the camera, just say to us, cut this out of the camera, we'll just chop it up, okay? Or we'll chop it out. Does that make sense? But essentially it's to let people know who you are and how far you've gone through with all of this. Those people that have had success using the things that I'm teaching and I'm doing as well. So we heard from Errol already. Is there anybody else that wants to share?
I'd like to.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Hi, my name's Ray, and I'm part of a group called the Response Group. Some of you may be aware.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Okay, I'm a little bit nervous, Mark. But, what I'd like to say is that we need more people to get involved with the Response Group. Those of you who have heard of the Response Group, what we do is that we assist people that are in the process of being evicted. We will turn up to people's homes and we will stand between the home and the bailiffs. We are, within that algorithm, we've got people that are forensically analysing the paperwork. And what I would do as a Commonwealth Sheriff would insist to see the paperwork of a bailiff to ensure that the paperwork is correct. The bailiff's not using the correct instruments to take possession of the property. That means they're committing a criminal act. The other thing that I'm doing is trying to get the police involved. So I'm engaging with the police, and I'm asking the police to assist us to look at the paperwork. But most importantly, what I need is people that are willing to give up a bit of their time to help other people to protect their property.
How would we find you?
I would like people to give me their contact details.
And what about the people behind the camera?
The people. This is for everyone. Do
you want to share your email address with us or your phone number?
My email address is raynw5@yahoo.co.uk.
The number 5.
The number 5, that's correct. I especially need people based in London and the south east of England to contact me. Yeah, so that we can set up a proper response group to help those people that are in the process of having their property stolen. So, I said as part of the group, so is Tom Crawford, so is Mr. Ebert. I work with Mr. Ebert. I have been up until very recently on a day-to-day basis going to court with him, going to the police station with him. So, you know, and there's many other decent people out there that Mark Salon, great guy, yeah.
Sorry, thank you very much.
Email address one more time, please.
My email address is ray.nw5@yahoo.co.uk.
The point of these things is that the judges can no longer hold you in contempt of anything and threaten to imprison you. That's what he's saying. Otherwise, this chap would be in prison now.
Mark, I should add, the first 2 counts were discussed, and as soon as they were discussed, the judge actually disappeared. Didn't hand it out. I went to give my paper, I picked it back up, and he was gone.
Yeah, that is how easy these things are if you're in possession of your own mind, your own thought. And he made the journey. Because he made the journey, I gave him the sufficient amount of training and the hours put in to prepare the documents to keep him safe out of prison. Yeah, that's the power of these things. And the judge could not perform any tricks and traps because he's in possession of a federal document prepared exactly how a judge would prepare his documents for filing. Yeah, and I'm fairly creative, so I can usually twist it around where I'm actually forcing them to become a judge if need be. Yeah, I'm creative enough to be able to do that, and that's how safeguarded him from being in prison. Before a couple of other people are going to share a few more things, I want to speak to you about, once again, the language. When you corrupt the language to the extent that it's corrupted at the moment, you get stratification of the mind. You create all sorts of characters and personalities, mainly personalities. These personalities are usually in a state of mental cognitive dissonance, something that I'll be covering today. When you do that, because you create subspecies, species after species, everybody cannibalizing on each other. And we are the only species on this planet that run a cannibalistic economy. We cannibalize on each other on a sociological level, on an economical level, and on a psychological level. This level of cannibalism is almost everywhere. Now, coming back to the operating system that is within your CPU, within your brain thinking capacity. If I was, say, in Hawaii or any one of those South Sea islands, and my language, the language that I speak, doesn't punish the truth, if the language does not punish the truth, then there is no words to lie with, because you never need to lie. And if you don't need to lie, the words that you speak will be the truth, factual. As a result, your operating system is constantly rewarded for telling the truth and truth. If, however, you punish the child for telling the truth, spilling milk, damaging the house, you now create an operating system that has learnt that if you tell the truth, it's punishable. The child will now begin to find words that create covertness. It will learn to lie, and lie it will, because the rewards of telling the truth is punishment and pain. The rewards for telling the lie is no pain and no punishment. The child is forced to never speak the facts, speak the truth, and it will create its own babble, flibbing. So if I was raised on an island, say Britain, Hawaii, and the race of people that lived there do not punish people, their children, for telling the truth, but rather reward them for it, you now got an operating system, the language, the words, that has no corruption, no need for lies, no need for 101 billion personalities, not characters. Millions of people running around cannibalizing on each other, which creates a perfect breeding ground for me to come in as a judge, controller, frictional money, religion, whatever you call it, and live off that corruption. And if I was a conquering force that understood the benefits of that corruption, and I entered that island that rewarded children for telling the truth and the wider society, I would have to change the language. And the first thing that I do is I will force you to speak the language of Babel. And if you ever told the truth, I will punish you. And if you don't do what I say, I will chop your head off, as they did in Hawaii, as they did in Ireland, as they did in this land that you sit on at the moment. The people that invaded these places, they are not of a race, they are of a particular psychological type, a particular species of man and woman. They give you the illusion they belong to a race. They don't. They are a species of man and woman that live off that corruption. So, if you spoke your language that did not speak in Babel, that spoke factual in the here and now jurisdiction, the first rule would be to remove that language. And if you don't speak my language in Babel, I'll behead you. As they did in Ireland, as they did in Hawaii, and all these other places that they visited. The first thing they did was corrupt the language. And they usually did that with their religions, forced it on them. There's a particular, first of all, do you understand the profound nature of the statement that I have just now made? You must corrupt the language. That's the first thing they do when they go in, is that they will corrupt the language. They will tell you to speak in adverb-verb scenario, a dangling participle verb in your head where there is no closure. You're running on vile poetry. Your mind is constantly thinking in vile poetry, vulgar poetry. And they keep you in that state of fear constantly. When you do that, you create alternative personalities, predatory-like personalities, parasite personalities, passive-aggressive type of personalities, which is an oxymoron, by the way, so I'll put some words into it. A personality that will write pen letters, poison pen letters, and so on and so forth. That's the language we used to use. I don't know what they call it now. They call it cyberbullying, I believe. But this is the activity of the passive-aggressives. It creates all these subspecies of man and women. And the judges just live off of it. The attorneys, the rulers of your world, they just live off of it. And they milk you for everything. They'll give you the belief there is a huge divide between this region and that region. There is no divide. Because if me and you come together, we have formed contract, and two people make contract. And if we agree upon that is what it is, there is no middleman. There is no king, no queen. You must corrupt the kernel of the operating system for this corruption to take hold. And that corrupting system creates all sorts of subspecies. And one of them is psychopaths. We all know about psychopaths. It's a disability. It's nature's process of protecting itself from feelings, because we are the only species that cannibalize on each other psychologically. So the brain cuts off the feelings. If I went to a concentration camp, my ability to feel would be cut off, because my body, my mind needs to do that in order to safeguard me from feeling too much psychological and physiological pain. We call that numbness. Yeah? And over the periods, as I get better and better, the synapses begin to form again, creating memories, feelings. If I was born like that as a child, there's very little that I can do about it. And you have to recognize them for what they are. You cannot hurt them, you cannot beat them. But imagine that a psychopath was born into your family, born into it. The first thing that if that parent was already corrupted, the first thing they're going to do to that psychopath is to beat it, torture it, until it produces tears, a form of mimicry. Because it cannot feel what you feel, you beat the child until it cries. Who's the fucking psychopath now? I have had psychopaths tell me these things. Who the fuck is the psychopath now? Yeah? Who the hell wants these feelings? You beat it out of me, so I created mimicry. That's what they tell me. So the world is a lot more complex than you think. Hence, I offer no judgment. I will not make any judgment on these people. What I will do, say, is I will help you. I have the ability to do that. I have the knowledge to do that. What is it that I'm saying? Do not be surprised that when the feeling types that you guys are so imbued with is the creator of these subspecies. Don't be surprised about that. That have turned up into your lives and try to help you because they've noticed certain things. I'm not going to mention them, but they're all around you. They're trying to help you because they see that you are emotionally disturbed. Emotionally disturbed because you cannot handle your emotions, which is so beautifully narrated in Pandora's story. You cut out all feelings of hope and there you float around. It's the language. Thanks to Miller, thanks to Federal Judge Wayne Miller, I'm able to put the words back in, deprogram it, get rid of it, so the corruption no longer takes you hold. and we no longer have these subspecies. The subspecies are evolving. They're forming emotions at this moment. Nature's finding a way to bridge it. Yeah? So these people work very hard. In fact, they pump in trillions of pounds to keep the illusion of that fear. Now, some of the people here have been successfully prosecuted and terrorized and persecuted because they are really good healers. In reality, there are hundreds of people in Britain at this moment that have found their own solutions to the illnesses and ailments that they have. And the pharmaceutical companies go after them. But you don't ever get to hear about it. You only get to hear about those ones that have been successfully prosecuted, but never the ones that had enough strength to stand up to them and say, F off. And there are many of them, just as there are many people that have found incredible solutions, solutions that are so simplistic that they work 99% of the time. They're out there, but you haven't heard about them because of the language that you use that does not allow you to access the library of Google. Have the words, Google will provide you with the information. If you do not know the words to access to that information, the word is actually formation. IN means no formation. If, just as the word independence means no dependence, information means no information. It means no formation. Just as UN means no, like in unlimited, United Nation means no United Nations. As a result, United Nations does nothing but says a lot of things in adverb verb, but does nothing. The open flags are running all around you at all times. I've slightly diverted, but I'll come back again. Refine your words where you mean what you say, not meaning what you say. If you can do that and create a full stop, you take full jurisdiction of your operating system, of the way that you think, and nobody can pull you down. If you can spend that time doing that, and if you can spend the time listening to David Wynn Miller, I beg your pardon, on how to syntax, spend at least 200 hours on it, learning how to syntax, then come and see me, and I'll take what I'm teaching now to a whole new different level, on the level that he is operating at the moment. Because his system is going global. It's going global. What I'm doing in this Britain, I'm the only one that's doing it in Britain, is going all over the world. There's one person in Australia, there's one me, and there's a few people in Hawaii, and there's a few people in the US. That's it. That's about 8 people in this entire surface of this planet. That's how powerful and how here and now it is. So whatever it is that you guys are doing in your life, you're now in the here and now. So I congratulate you for that. That's a big transition. Most people cannot break out of the world of poetry. Yeah? Running on adverb-verb scenario. To sum up, to corrupt a system, all you have to do is punish it. If you punish a child for telling the truth, you created an operating system that will constantly lie and blag its way through life. You reward it for telling the truth, you create a system that is always rewarded when it's in possession of a fact. And you cannot break that movement, and you cannot break that child. You can only kill the child, just as Monsanto cannot break the cell membrane, otherwise you'll kill it. So they find very creative ways to corrupt the kernel of the cell. But that's a different story. What is it that I'm saying? Find it within yourself to do that 2 hours, and I'll take this to a different level. Find it within yourselves to be able to refine the language so well that the people around you, as well as the people with you, as well as yourself, you're not punishing them for telling the truth. If you can do that, you will certainly be able to work with me. If you can't, I won't go into the world of the shopping list of all the things that I don't want. So I don't speak about those things which I won't do, because that's an infinity equation. I speak about the things that I can do, because that's the only thing I can do. And that's a fact. If you can find that within yourself, I'll work with you. I'll work one and one together. Okay? Yes?
I've watched David Miller's quite extensively, and I get the initial readings of how you can see in your own documents where...
Correct sentence structure, parsé, syntax, grammar,
exactly.
Which simply means write the things that you're going to write so I can understand it, and make it so precise it requires no interpretation, and make it so precise it can be mathematically precise, because 1 + 1 is always 2. It's not anything else. That's a fact. That's quite a profound statement. What does that mean in reality? No person can sit where he is in that jurisdiction, in that time and space. That's what that sentence means. That it's not open to interpretation. What I say is what I mean. Watch me do this. You've seen it 1,000 times, but you cannot understand it. Not yet. Removing all racial connotations, all the things that you thought it meant. Pale face. Speak with forked tongue. Full stop. Get the fuck out of my land. Because you're a ghost that speaks in mendacity. You say one thing and do the other. Very important. These people have disappeared. They've disappeared. How many people know that the Apache Indians held off the Spanish for 200 years? They held them off for 200 years. They tried to annihilate the entire race because they're corrupting, because their operating system was not corrupted, their thinking patterns. They could see a lie for a lie. And you cannot destroy that. You cannot remove the integration of that, the integrity, I beg your pardon, of that. Cannot remove it. The only way to do it is to make the race extinct, which they did. And they ran on an operating system known as the ontons. You do what is correct, and 1,000 people will follow you. That's all it does. If you know what you're doing, 1,000 people will follow you, and they'll fight the battle that you're fighting. The AA does it. 1,001 of these free movements does it, because at the core of their operating system is that which is correct, that which is honorable, that which is duty-bound. Anything else is fiction. It's a lie. You cannot corrupt it. Then the modern day Americans came along and took over the trying of the extinction of the Apache Indians. That battle went on for another 200 years. For 400 years, they held them off, until a very clever man came along, an anthropologist, and he said, hey, I got the solution. And the solution is very easy. They gave them property. Onton does not understand a property. No Apache Indian ever understood what a property was. They don't have the thinking capacity to take possession of something that does not belong to them. A cow, dog, none of these things belong to them. Not the land, nothing. They roam on it. They live on it. They do not understand ownership. Full stop. They said, give them property. So they came with lots of cattle, and they promised 1 or 2 people all the lands that they want. Within a few years, the entire race was domesticated. Full stop. Their trick is to give you the illusion of ownership of your property. And you fight tooth and nail to protect it. And they'll sit back and just wait for the opportunity when your bond comes into fruit, and they'll go in and take what you have developed. The sweat equity that you added to the land, so they don't have to go and remove the stones from the farmland, the houses that you built, so on and so forth. They just sit back and they go in. It's a perfect business model, been running for thousands of years in your world. Does that make sense? The insights into this are at the very core of it. And because they're at the core of it, they can't get away with it with me. They can't get away with it because I know their lies and their delusions and their illusions. Okay? That is that. I'm sorry that I went into a slight preaching mode there.
So, can I ask my question? I just wanted to ask. I mean, I'm fascinated with David Whitman and the parsing syntax grammar. How does one actually learn it as a language? You know, as you would learn French, German.
Thank you. That's how you learn it. Like French, German, or anything else. What is, look, let me read something from you. Now, this little book here cost me $200. Yeah? He said, the reason why I do that is because if you add value to it, people protect it. That's the madness that you live on. I know the value of this, so I've got 3 of them. I've got 3 of them. One, I gave to my good friend Carl, who sits behind the camera. I gave him one. And the other one I gave to one of my Irish ambassadors. And I kept the other. I never photocopied it and gave it to them. I wanted to create real value. So I wanted to pay him for the things that he's done. It took him 30 years to write these things. Yeah? So, the language. Let's come to the language before I come on to a couple of other people here. I'm going to read this out for you. And let me see if you guys can understand any of it. Because it took me 3 years of study to understand how beautiful this language really is, because it speaks in the here and now jurisdiction. But since most people cannot speak in the here and now jurisdiction, it's quite tricky to understand. And he did say it will take 200 hours or more. It took me probably 2,000 hours. Yeah, probably even more. How long do you think it took me, Leon?
2 years.
2 years, yeah? 2 years of reading this on a full-time basis and understanding it. So probably 10,000 hours. But I am not a clever person. I'm a quick study when it comes to facts. But since my operating system has always been corrupted, I found it a bit of a challenge. But luckily, the head that I had on it is that I refused to go to school. I had agreement with my headmaster saying, just sign me in once a week. I'll come in, put my name in, but don't question me anymore. And that's how I went through. I never learned anything in school because I could not learn anything in school because they were not teaching me anything in school. Yeah, I taught myself. And you can question me on almost any subject you want. I'll give you the answer. I'm familiar with probably 50, 60 subjects in depth. That's my statement. If you want to test it, you can test it. But let me just read that for you. For the federal judge's knowledge of this correct sentence structure, parsing syntax grammar, facts are with the damaged claims of the fraudulent modification parsing syntax grammar with the words, phrases, and sentence structure grammar by the adverb, adjectives, and pronouns with the fraudulent grammar by the lawyers, attorneys, judges, filing. Full stop. Yeah? Do you know what that said? I understand it perfectly. What he's just said, I have knowledge and the paper trail evidence of how you corrupted the language. That's what he said. And because it's on paper, I have your signed autograph, not your signature. Signed autograph. Yeah, full stop. That's a title, by the way. If you ever use the mail system to put through poison pen, that means modified things, that carries a prison sentence. Now, I'll cover these topics with you so you can have a good idea of how much power that you really have. Once I introduced a couple of more other people in front here so they can share a few bits and pieces. You will find it riveting as to how the courtrooms are going to work, because I'm going to speak to you about the courtrooms now. Okay? Real case scenarios. Now, that case was won over in what's known as the contract document vessel. Most of the cases of that nature I win over by placing the cargo into the document and using the document as the courtroom, empowering the fiduciary to be honor-bound, duty-bound, removing all planes and boxes in the court, and deputizing him to act as the fiduciary. He has no choice. As soon as he's opened a federal document, he can't get rid of it. That's how I won the case over him. But that's a simple case, because the simplicity of it is that they are so stupid. So stupid. They left all the papers to our evidence. And I quoted all the titles, and I said, if you pursue this any further, you're going to find yourself at The Hague. Yeah? You're going to find yourself at The Hague. And I called it, For My Knowledge of the Queen's Bench, for my knowledge of the common law courts at The Hague, is with the name and shame of the evil that you have done to that man. Full stop. Get out of that one. Yeah? And that's what happens. And if you wish to go into the courts to help people, I'll give you all the knowledge with that as well. Okay? And you can go in as many types of characters as you want. One of them, of course, is friend of the court. Call it for what it is, as opposed to a McKinsey friend or anything else. It's a friend of the court, which means you're a friend of the judge, the clerk of the court, and so on and so forth. Okay? That is that. I want to go to you in the world of the courtroom. I just want to get a quick feel of how many people know what I mean by a courtroom. Anybody here know what a courtroom is? Call it out, please.
Joke.
Place of business.
Okay. What does it literally mean, a courtroom?
Is it a vessel in dry dock?
Where a contract is agreed.
It's where a game is played. One court.
Correct. What he said is a courtroom is a place where games are played. And the game is vocabulary. That's the game that they're going to play with you, and you have to learn that vocabulary, albeit dictate your own vocabulary. A courtroom, by definition, is also a level playing field, which means I cannot purposely disable a person by putting them 10 feet below me and expect them to play the tennis ball at me. That's already a disability, and that's not a playing field. But when you walk into a court, you have multi-layers. One sitting on this layer, one sitting on this plane, and they're known as planes. So, to your subconscious, they already told you it's not a playing field. Whatever this is, it's not a court. Okay? So the judge is sitting on the highest plane, who doesn't actually exist in a courtroom, because under maritime law, anything of a plane is not in that world. The judge doesn't exist in that world. Anything that's outside of a level playing field doesn't exist there. Anything in a box is a hole in the territory of that courtroom. When you go into a box, like a witness box or a stand, you've just disappeared out of the court. You're in a vacuum. And if it's got a fence around it, that's your prison. You've volunteered to go into that prison. And you can try it. Go in there voluntarily and leave, you'll get arrested straight away. Because now you see me, now I'm back in your jurisdiction. Arrest that man, because he didn't ask permission to leave. If you go into a box, it's all over. The judge has full control over you, and now at this stage, the judge is not even a judge. He's the captain of his vessel, because a courtroom under maritime law is a vessel in dry dock. You've actually walked into a trap. Yeah, that's why I teach everybody the first thing you need to do is remove the boxes and the planes. So as soon as you walk in, I remove all boxes and planes from this court. Full stop. That's a level playing field. When that happens, you can say what you need to say. Okay? Everybody is level playing field. Full stop. However, how many layers there are in a court, or planes or levels, it no longer matters. You don't ever go into a box because that box is not within that territory. It's a place where nothing exists. It's a vacuum. A hole in the territory of the courtroom. Okay? That is why a judge can dismiss the jury and say and instruct the jury to do whatever they need to do, whatever he wants them to do. Dismiss them or say, find him not guilty or guilty. Because they're not in the courtroom. That's advertised because they sit on a plane. Yeah? If you don't remove the boxes, the jury will not be sitting on level playing field. Full stop. Okay? When you prepare the documents that I teach you, you go into a different jurisdiction. That's the jurisdiction of federal law and maritime as well. And that will safeguard you. Because when you prepare your document like this, with a postage stamp across it, and listen very carefully, that makes you the judge in this courtroom, which is this. And it makes you the bank. The money that you have is the money you keep. It makes you a banker, so you can bank money. And you move out of the new jurisdiction that you want. How is this possible? How is it possible? Remember the words plain sight. Everything has been plain sight. So I will now explain to you how the UPU essentially walked into every country in the world. I beg your pardon, almost every country, or 99 point something countries. There are a few that have not joined up. In other words, they don't have letter service. It's very simple. What they did is that they came in and they said, look, he's African, I'm Singapore. You guys want to speak to each other, don't you? We'll create a letter system. Okay? And we'll use maritime law to operate that. So that will be the currency, the postage stamp. As long as that postage stamp is in that letter, we have full jurisdiction of that vessel as it travels between this point and that point. And each country treaties with each other, or treaties with me as the UPU, to safeguard those letters as it moves from one point to the other on this planet. And that treaty allows the postmaster, the post carrier, the letter carrier, without any hindrance, to freely move through any territory that's treated with him, deliver that letter, and move away safely. One ship docking with another ship, hence it carries a docket number. In order for me to be able to give you that mechanism, I had to put some fail-safe devices in. Fail-safe. And this is where I catch them out with. Because they created a near legal, perfect legal system to oversee the deliverance of this letter. The correct word is livery, not delivery, because DE means no livery. Remember in the olden days we used to call it livery. Yeah, it was known as livery. So what they did is they say, look, anybody coming under that jurisdiction of the postal system, anybody that misuses it to write poison pen letters or alter things or try to extract money, come under a very powerful international law known as federal law. And that's what governs all letters, because under maritime law, all paper is vessel. That's why it carries a stationary office. All paper has to be sanctioned as legal paper. A4, A5, all of that is their jurisdiction. Yeah, it belongs to them. If it carries a stamp, you've added value to that document, which means you paid for your freight, and it's protected by them. And guess who protects the authenticity, the authority, the ley lines, the route lines, the pony expresses, the tram lines? The military. The military will safeguard this. Okay, that's how powerful these things are. So, if anybody has any problem with this service, they created an independent territory, treaty to them, called a fiduciary service, which you guys now know as courtrooms. And they said, anybody writing poison pen letters and so on and so forth, anybody conveying fraudulent language or trying to extract money, come automatically under federal systems. And to oversee that problem, we will create an international territory where everybody can come together in paper form, contract, document contract vessel, or face-to-face with a highly trained fiduciary to say, what's wrong, Carl? What's happened? Well, it's this Mark. He sent me a bill for £50. And it's not £50, it's actually 50p. And it might be 50p. The fiduciary will now say, you've sent this bill to him, can you show me evidence of it being £50? So I will look at the letter and I will look at my paperwork and see, oh, somebody's moved the decimal point. Sorry, Errol. So I would send back the letter saying, sorry, it's only 50p. Perfectly fine. So the matter is now settled under the fiduciary system. Same case scenario. I now cannot produce evidence for that claim. So it's not 50p, it's not £50, not £50,000, but I cannot produce any claims. If I can't produce the claim, it's now a federal crime. I've used the post office to extract money from him, which is a crime. I can't send him a letter saying that he owes me something without proof of claim. I've used this transport mechanism to extract money. That's a crime. And there's a paper trail leading right to me. And that's where you get them. And within Miller's technology, it says if you alter the language that we all agreed upon, Federal Styles Manual, that we all agree upon what a full stop means is a full stop, and what an aborigine means aborigine, you alter that, then you come under a title. That's the claim, that's the fraudulent conveyance of language. Fraudulent claims of language. And you got them. You've used the post office, the postal system to extract money. You're now under the law of the fiduciary federal system. You have evidence for their lies. And you have evidence for them extracting money, which is a crime in any language, any period in time, however corrupt it may be. And these systems are thousands of years old. Thousands of years old. It's just the UPU came up with it in a slightly different way, in a modern way. And in doing so, which is the trick that Miller exposed, they slipped in the true intention of why they're offering you a perfect legal system to get your trust. And in between that, they slip in the ability to capture every single vessel on this planet. Because the people that issue you your passport is the same people. Passport. Ports, docket numbers. The people that move vessels about are the same people. Whether that's a ship or you are the vessels. You are all under the jurisdiction of the federal system. Do you get it now? Yeah? Who pays the judges?
Post office.
Post office pays it. Who pays the military to safeguard the transport of vessels, to protect the assets, protect the people and the assets and the lines of communication? The military. Do you see it, how powerful it is? I'm going to show you in evidence form, because I did say I will qualify everything I say when I show you what executive orders are. There are, since the 1960s, they've been putting in executive orders to take over the planet, which is capturing of petroleum, capturing of every single vessel on this planet, every land, so on and so forth. Most of it is actually on your land at this moment, like FEMA camps and so on and so forth. In Britain, they said it was for East Europeans to house them. Nothing of the sort. They are FEMA camps. Yeah? What's that place in France? Saint-Gard. Yeah? That's full of security guards. They're waiting for it to fill. In the US, these FEMA camps are already in place. There are thousands of people already in there. Yeah? These camps are for us. They're for you. And so on and so forth. So, the executive orders state that they're going to take over under an act of war. By the way, this country now has a military on the land for the first time. They demonstrated that in the Olympics.
Foreign military.
No, British military.
Well, and it's foreign as well.
There is only one military. It's all, yeah. Okay. So, I'll show you how vast and how powerful the mechanism is that I'm teaching you guys. And you can punch it up on your cell phone as I speak. Executive Order 10995, the entire communications industry, which they have now, by the way. Executive Order 10997, all petroleum, electricity, minerals, which they have now. Executive Order 10988, food resources and farm, Monsanto. Executive Order 10999, all transportation, highways, seaports. Executive Order 11000, government mobilization of civilian work brigades. Hasn't happened yet. Executive Order 11001, all health, education and welfare, which has already taken place. Now, essentially, I've only read out a few of the things. And now comes the double whammy, because they're essentially taking over the entire running of this planet. And now listen to this. Executive Order 11002, Postmaster General, registered persons, full stop. What the hell has a postmaster got to do with taking over the entire planet? It's there, but people don't see it. Because a postmaster has the ability to move through treaty, as long as he's paid for his stamp, to any territory where the UPU is treated with, which is almost every country on the planet. It also allows you to walk to any embassy, make your argument, move out. It allows you to go to the CIA headquarters, make your argument, and move out safely, because you are the postmaster. Abraham Lincoln was a letter carrier. It's in your history. They make it prominent. He was a letter carrier. He was a postmaster. Yeah, that's the power of these bureaucracies in place, and that's the power that I use, taught to me by Miller and a few other people, to be able to safely go into a courtroom, say what you need, and without any harassment, just simply walk out. You have a question?
I just wondering, is it UPU?
Universal Postal Union. Universal Postal Union. Bern, Switzerland, where all your money is printed, where all of your military takes place as well. Are you guys okay with that? Can I move on to a different subject?
Just quickly, what were you reading?
I beg your pardon?
What were you reading? Maybe like
Oh, executive orders.
issued by the EU.
No, this is executive orders when the military has to take over because of some incredible threat to the general world's population, which they normally create themselves. But they are expecting trouble. We're in that era now. We're probably in that year now. Yeah, because they'll be trying to get rid of postmasters very soon. I'll put a stop to that. Yes, please go on.
Who actually creates the executive orders?
The Prime Minister of those countries and the presidents of those countries.
And who's actually instructing the Prime Minister?
The UPU.
UPU?
Yeah.
So who exactly is that body?
The IMF family, the Vatican. There is no separation between the conscious mind and the subconscious. It's the belief that you hold that created that separation. The belief is put inside of you with the words that you use to create the separation. If you believe that I am different to you, then I am different to you. Full stop. Since I was a child, I have been working on methods on being able to fuse those two minds, which are not two minds. It was just told to me that it was, but there are no left brain, right brain hemispheres. It's been separated by the corruption of the language, which they did. And that creates a delusion. It also creates a process known as mental cognitive dissonance. That's a safety mechanism, and they're running on it. I have the ability to remove that now. I'm able to remove mental dissonance from you. That is one element of what I have. The ability to be able to, should we say, for a better word, engineer, to be able to engineer a character strong enough to be able to pull down any judge or politician or just banish these agencies from your world is what also I train people to do. And I've been training these people now for 4 years, and I call them euphemistically my ambassadors. But they're not my ambassadors. These are men and women that are in possession of their own thoughts and their own minds. And those are the only people that I can work with. And I develop that to a level where they have full control in the world that they live in, as every single animal on this planet has. Yeah? The mental dissonance that people create is to create everlasting separations, more diverse than one can possibly imagine. They justify things as being right and wrong and good and evil and so on and so forth. They would even believe that their pet dog has lesser feelings than you do, when you quite clearly see the dog crying if you do anything bad to it. It mourns for its children just like anybody else does. And if you do not know that, I won't work with you. I simply won't work with you. If you think a horse or whatever it is, or an ant, is anything less than you, I won't work with you. You're going to have to be in a frame of mind that you know that the world you live in is revolving relative to you. Okay? That is one. The other things that I'm doing, I can't reveal on camera, but if you speak to me, I'll let you know what it is, the other things that I'm doing. Okay? I don't go into the world of mysticism and so on and so forth. I speak as facts are. When I express an opinion, I express it as an opinion, and you will know it as an opinion, which means it's just nothing. When I'm speaking about making statements, I qualify my statements. If I'm saying facts, I will qualify my facts, and I'll give you the evidence for it. And that's why you all have phones, and you punch it up, and you read it. Okay? What is my vision? My vision is that I'm free, and so are you. There is no separation between me and my subconscious. That's an illusion. That can be bridged. And I've refined my training programs to a point where you essentially will be able to do what you want as an honor-bound, duty-bound man or woman going about their business. I have the power to shut down the economy. I have the power to shut down governments, so on and so forth, agencies, and so on and so forth. The list goes on and on. And that's what I'll be rolling out before Christmas. Sorry, before summer. Yeah, months to come. And they will plan assassination, character assassination attacks, and so on and so forth. So be it. I long time ago made a covenant with myself, and I did so as a child. I will do exactly what I want to do, and I know what is correct, and I know what the rest is not. I only know that which is correct. That's how your subconscious mind works. That's how the lie detector works. It alerts you to the fact that 2 times 2 is 4. Anything else is not. If you can make that transition, you will understand how the subconscious mind works. My friend Tony Wright wrote a book called Left in the Dark. It talks about the subconscious mind. The subconscious mind is what nature gave you. Okay? It can see 18 kilometers away. It can hear things 5-6 kilometers away. And I, being somewhat sexually orientated as well, I can smell every single woman in this room. And I have no problem saying it, and I'm very comfortable with it. And if you guys are not comfortable with it, tough luck. What is it that I'm saying? Your subconscious also has the ability to think 120 times faster than your conscious mind. It's 120 times faster. Any tricks that you perform, it will cancel it out at a click of a finger. Click of a finger. That includes judges, governments, and so on and so forth. That's why they go to great lengths to put these things in the public as facts. They give you the lie and the truth at the same time. The conscious mind goes for the lie because it's an empty vessel floating in a sea of space. The conscious mind stays with the facts. That is why they have to incriminate themselves. They have to incriminate themselves. Otherwise, your subconscious mind is going to pop out. You've heard many cases where people have done what appears to be miraculous things in strength. Well, that's because when you're operating fully at a subconscious level, that means your subconscious is no longer subconscious but dominant. It is the dominant operating system, which happens millions of times a day. It's just that you don't know it. If that kick-starts your psychomotor skills, and I have the strength to pick this man up and throw him to that side, if he harms me or shows me to do harm. Other than that, it will just stand down because it's not a violent creature. It can perform no violence because it doesn't recognize it. It can tell no lie because it does not recognize it. Yeah? The way that the judges, the high court judges, the really high ones, they're the ones that also corrupt your language. They're also in the center of those secret societies. They're the ones that own the dictionaries. They're the ones that publish the dictionaries. That's why they have 2nd edition, 3rd edition, and they use one word now that's a completely different meaning. You change the meaning of a word, you change the entire language. You are speaking Chinese, it's just that you don't know it. If you lie to the subconscious, if I put you on a lie detector machine, what will happen? If I ask you a question, what will happen and you don't tell the truth? It will alert you to something is wrong. Carl Gustav Jung discovered that. You can bypass a lie detector machine by doing mathematical calculations in your head or playing chess. That's how they break the lie detector test. But the point is, there is something inside of you that constantly alerts you to the facts are the facts and the facts and the facts. Initiate that. No judge, no attorney, no government, nobody can lie to you because it will go lie, lie, lie. But it's actually saying, these are the facts, these are the facts, these are the facts, these are the facts, these are the facts. Stay with the facts, stay on point, stay on point, stay on point. Do not allow yourself to be interrupted. Do not allow yourself to be interrupted. It's fact, fact, fact. That's what it's alerting to you to. If I'm in court and somebody gives me something, I ain't interested. If somebody passes me a document across the table, I get my pen out and perform a forensic test on it because I don't take jurisdiction on it. So I just look at them and throw it back at them. Yeah? Not interested. You want to communicate with me, you communicate using recognised methods of transport. Keep it in the federal jurisdiction, which I did for him. Hence, they don't even recognise that he got convicted now. You're going to have to get over this process that they have power over you. They don't.
It's all about the mail fraud you were asking.
Yeah, it's to bypass it. That's why they tried to bypass the court system by performing a mail fraud. They rather suffer mail fraud than have that entire institution removed, essentially.
Can you forewarn them what your intentions will be, or do you wait for court?
I don't know what that means.
I would wait for court. We've done it both ways, and it worked a lot better when we went off of the when we submitted the documents first.
I suppose what I'm saying is when I don't know what that means is giving the opportunity to rephrase it.
Is there any point in trying to derail a corporate attack on you before it gets to court?
Yes, which is to syntax the document as a fraudulent piece of cargo.
We found there's great ignorance, or they would pretend there's great ignorance. They don't understand.
Look,
They use that against us.
look. You know, the reason why Michael was here is because he had success with what I do, and those are the only things that I could speak about. What other people do, I'm not really interested in, because this is just what happens to people that don't know how to fight it. When you start to mention titles and so on and so forth, they get really frightened, because they can type these things up and, oh bloody hell, it's there. It's there. Now, I'll come on to a slight subject, slightly indirect. As you know, every judge has, what's the word? They have immunity. I can't pronounce the word judicial immunity, so help me out here.
Judicial immunity.
I can't hear. I'm deaf. You know.
Judicial immunity.
What does that mean?
They use it so they don't have to answer anything. They basically go into judicial immunity when they're breaking rules.
What if I got a great big bit of stick and bashed you over the head? Do I have immunity?
If you're a judge and you're writing a degree of masonry, then yeah.
What if I did the most grotesque things that you can imagine? Do I still have immunity?
They do.
Speak the facts. I'm not interested in your guesses at this stage in your training. I simply am not interested in your guesses. If you want to guess, you can take it outside. Give me the facts. Are you really telling me, if I'm a judge, I can perform anything that I want? Anything that I want?
No, absolutely not.
Anything.
Judicial immunity for the decisions that they might make or conclusions they arrive at, but not for physical torts.
Are you sure? Because my friend Russell Gould, he was bashed over the head, taken out of court, spent 90 days in interrogation where they tortured him, pumped him full of drugs, stopped his heart, restarted it. He's the one that learnt all these mechanisms. He put his own body at risk to teach us, or teach me really. So they have full immunity. Who do we know has the right to do such things? In medieval times or any of these things, who has the right to do that? Kings. Kings have the right to do that. Who's the kings that's running your court, who's running your country? There are thousands of them. It's the judges. The judges are openly telling you, we are performing as kings because we are kings in our courtroom. Who else has the right to do that? No, you don't. Captains of their vessels. If I'm the captain of my vessel, if I see it correct, if I see it's the judgment that I should pull my weapon out and shoot this man, no law on this planet will question me. Judges, captains of their vessels, and kings and queens have the right to do that. And that's how the judges control the politicians, the governments, the bankers, the social care workers, the whatever it is. Every single thing that you can imagine that they are controlling, that is man and woman bound. They're the kings and queens of your country. Full stop. I wish to bring in, like most things, I have closure, I have solution. I don't give problems without a solution. To give you an idea of the workings of the subconscious mind, can somebody read me the text? Your subconscious mind is actually making full sense of that. That's just garbage. There's nothing there. But it's making full sense of that. Now, if I took, say, half an hour out and wrote that out properly, which I haven't done so because I didn't have the time, you'd be able to read that. 99% of the words are missing. And your subconscious is working. It's searching every part of your brain to make sense of that. Yeah, it's making sense of that. That's the subconscious mind. Only the subconscious mind can do such things. Only the subconscious mind can pick up a pen and write an autograph, or perform the thousands of psychomotor skills, firing of muscles, thousands of muscles to keep you standing or balancing. It's there all the time. It's making sense of that. That is the subconscious mind working, and your subconscious mind will be able to make 100% success of that. You'll be able to read that accurately. They knew this, the judges, the ones that corrupt the language, and what they did is they used the same system by creating dualities. They're saying, well, that's not really what that means. That's not really what it means, because you have no evidence that's not what it means, and nor do they. But as long as they get you to believe it means something else, you're reading that. But your subconscious mind, being the truthful creature that it is, will make 100% success of that. I brought this in as a two-edged sword because I wanted to show you the gifts that nature gave you is the very thing that they're using against you. Like you have a weight, they push the weight out of balance. You have a pattern of thought, and they interrupt that pattern of thought as an interruption. And we call that a handshake interruption. In hypnosis, they call it a handshake interruption. In people that went to old schools, and I mean old school thinking, they just called it, shut up, don't interrupt me.
That's right, yeah.
Which you need to take full possession of. If you interrupt me, well, that's not courtesy. And the word courtesy comes from the behavior in a courtroom. You guys are okay with that? Mm-hmm. Can you read that there for me? Yeah. That's what that means. Somebody read that up for me.
Except as otherwise provided in this section, whoever, in any matter within the jurisdiction of the executive, legislative or judicial branch of the government of the United States, knowingly and willfully, falsifies, conceals or cover up by any trick, scheme or device a material fact, makes any materially false, fictitious or fraudulent statement or representation, or makes or uses any false writing or document, knowing the same to contain any materially false, fictitious or fraudulent statement or entry, shall be fined under this title, imprisoned for not more than 5 years, or if the offence involves international or domestic terrorism, as defined in section 2331, imprisoned not more than 8 years, or both. If the matter relates to an offence under chapter 109A, 109B, 110 or 117 or section 1591, then the term of imprisonment imposed under this section shall not be more than 8 years. B, subsection A does not apply to a party to a judicial proceeding or that party's counsel for.
Yeah, I don't want to scroll down any further, otherwise it gets... What have you just guys read?
Shut up or I'll let you go over the head. 3 months.
Yeah, you lie to the conscious mind, you tell the truth to the subconscious. The subconscious knows that. Now you have titles. You are now in first person knowledge. You now know there is no such thing as... Somebody pronounce that word for me, please. Judicial. No bloody such thing. And that's what I taught Toby. Because I forced the judge to make joinder. Yeah? When he joins, judiciary immunity disappears. The reason why it disappears is because he never took jurisdiction. It's the pretense. They hide behind these words because he never took jurisdiction. He's not on that plane. He doesn't even exist in that courtroom. Anybody in a plane is not in court. They're on a different plane. You might as well be in Mexico. anywhere apart from the courtroom. The only person that has jurisdiction is the one that autographed and made joinder with that document, which is the clerk of the court. The clerk of the court uses the judge that's sitting up there as the puppet. And that way he just performs all the tricks and performs no jurisdiction. So when you sue him, it's, sue me what? I wasn't there. That's maritime law, it's there. Anything in a plane, that's in your sports, that's in your language, that's in everything. He's not there. How can he take jurisdiction? You lie to the conscious mind and you tell the truth to the subconscious, called stand down. Yeah? You just look at a facet of what people's beliefs take them into doing what they do, has to show you how easy it is to hijack the conscious mind. Now that you have first-person knowledge, ain't going to work, is it? Because the reason why he has judicial immunity is because he was never there. That's the trick, that's the illusion. He was never there. So when Errol sued, made a complaint about what happened, because he got convicted while he was hospitalized or bed or something, the judge threw out the evidence. It had a doctor's note in it, hospital, blah, 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 all the evidence there, he threw it out. He did that very easily because he was never there. So you sue a person that's never there. The person that made joinder is the one that you must speak to. Yeah? He's the one that did what he did, but he got me to believe it was her that was sitting in the court. That's why this talk, this lecture, this workshop is called The Tricks and Traps of the Courts, of the government and the corporation. It's a trick. The trick is now over. They can no longer use the courtrooms to remove the commercial energy, the sweat equity of you, and use their courtrooms as a conduit to back the Regis, Bern, Switzerland, Vatican, and all these places. Game's over. You don't have the mechanism. Your train is not running on that rail anymore. I've just blown it out. Albeit, sorry, Miller has blown it out. And I'm doing it in this country. You have a question?
Yeah, I've lost the connection with judicial immunity and I'm sorry, I'm just saying I've lost that connection.
Yeah, they got you to believe there's such thing as judicial immunity by saying that they're immune from it doing anything that they want. Yeah? And I'm saying to you, you're bloody right. If you ever believe a judge was in the courtroom. He was never in the courtroom. He never signed anything. He's sitting on a different plane. He's not there. His name doesn't appear on anything. Only after he's convicted you does his name appear, because you've mitigated your crime.
So you put him in the courtroom by saying I remove all planes?
Yeah.
So he's there, and so then he has to be, as Tony did, then he has to be absolutely so careful what he said. And the judge in front of Tony actually said nothing.
This is wearing a disguise.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I remove all planes and boxes.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Then when he started talking to me, I said, who's addressing me? And he wouldn't tell me.
Yeah, clerk of the court is. The clerk of the court is addressing him. The clerk of the court is typing it, and he has a screen in front of him, and he reads it. If it's in the Queen's Bench, it's usually just a very expensive computer screen. He'll be sitting there. He'll be reading it directly off of there. Clerk of the court will be typing it up.
Actually, she was the most flustered person in that courtroom. Yeah.
Who was?
The clerk of the court. It was a she, and she
Yeah.
was the most... Sorry, no, she was really the most flustered.
Yeah. Huh? Beg your pardon? Oh yeah. Is there any questions? Sorry, you're pointing at me for Carl. Oh, I see a question. Okay.
I did the same thing. Removed the boxes and the planes. How come the judge was able to then ignore my document and ignore what?
I can't hear you.
I did the same thing. I removed the boxes and the planes, and actually did it 3 times throughout the hearing. So how come the judge, if then she was on the same plane as me, was able to ignore my documentation?
Was there any planes and boxes in the courtroom, or is it level playing field, everybody in the bench, chairs, and so on and so forth?
Tables and chairs, and she was elevated by 1 step.
Okay, then she is not. Then she doesn't know what that document really is.
Yeah, she seemed to act like that, because at one point...
If she doesn't know what it is, she'll be acting out in ignorance, but she cannot withdraw the document because it's got stamps on it, and it's got a serial number on it. It's in federal jurisdiction. What you have to do is develop the language to keep him in that jurisdiction. If you don't have the language, you cannot hold a person down. I can hold a person down verbally very easily. I can hold every single one of you here in this room verbally in control. I can keep that control very easily. You can try it. You can call my bluff if you want. I'm kind of a flirtatious person as well. Hence he teaches me dancing. called coquetry. We're the only species on this planet where the male doesn't perform coquetry. A very profound statement there. Everything else in nature, it's the male that performs the coquetry. The flirtatious behavior, the dressing up, the lipstick. I'm the one that's supposed to be wearing the lipstick and the shirt and so on and so forth. We're the only species. These things are in plain sight. This happened not so very far back in your history, when these people came in and corrupted your language. They made it so clear to you when they corrupted it, they even said, let's go forth and corrupt them. Let's go forth and make them babble. Let's go forth and dismantle them. And then they said God did it. That's biblical. Yeah? This is when your society got twisted. We became very different from the rest of the animals on our planet. Women are performing the role of male. Men are performing the role of females. I kid you not. There isn't a single animal on this planet that performs coquetry as a female. Yeah? So you guys have to spend most of your wages looking really quite good for us blokes. Whereas in reality, it's supposed to be us folks, us blokes, that are supposed to be doing it for you, because you have the ability to replicate. Sorry, wrong word. You have the ability to give birth. Yeah, maritime expression. Look it up. Very profound statement. My theology teacher gave me a round of applause for spotting that one out. These are moments in your history. I know it's laughable. These are moments in your history where the world was changed for you. Once upon a time, you used to read from right to left. They forced it on you to read from left to right. You read from right to left, your subconscious reads faster, scans through thousands of words. So they forced you to read it the other way, slowing it down. Essentially got you to perform counting sheep, to say 2 times 2 equals 4 sheep. You put the symbolism in, you slow down the operating system. And that corruption goes on all the time. So you cannot even calculate at this stage in our education period your interest rate on your mortgage. Am I right, Ray?
Yeah.
How the hell did that happen? How did that happen? People cannot calculate their interest rate on their mortgage. That's by design. Yeah? That's by design. Have I driven home the point of how disabled they got you thinking that they have immunity? They have no immunity because it's there. It says so. I didn't write that. Look it up. Title 18, section 1001. Look it up for yourself. That's federal. So, lady, you now know no judge on this planet has what he says. Pull him off the bench or tell him to F off, which you have the power to do. Yeah? Any questions?
The executive orders you quoted earlier, which jurisdiction or which bodies issued those orders? Was it like which territory they come from?
If the country is in a state of emergency, in a state of war, these executive orders take place automatically.
But you said, so who is this country signed up to it? And is it all the UPU countries that are signed up to these executives?
Okay, let me rephrase it. I have a population in my city, in my country, of 2 people. I'm the commander-in-chief of that population. If there is war, I take full control over the other person. Have I made myself very clear? There is no difference between another person and 1 trillion people standing. If there is an act of war, then that executive order comes into operation, which has happened all the time in World War I, World War II. It's sitting there all the time. But this particular one that's going to come will be final. This will be final. This one will be final. You won't be able to come out of it. You will not be able to come.
Some numbers. I was just wondering who's actually drafted or issued these orders.
That's the seat. No, that's the seat of what's known as the presidency or the prime minister.
Of this territory or the US?
No, whichever. The Prime Minister here or
No,
President
but
there.
these orders have already been given numbers, which means they're already there in place, aren't they?
Correct.
That's right. So I was just asking which territories.
Is it? Sorry.
I just answered that question. Is there a prime minister in this country?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a president in some other country?
Yeah.
Thank you. That is that. You sent me a letter from the US. It's come to Britain. You've made some false claims in it. What jurisdiction owns that? Federal. It doesn't matter what country it's in. These are the codes taken from Cornell University, because I like their system. Yeah, you've got one for Australia and so on and so forth. If they want to know what we're talking about, they will type that in, and there they can go and reference it. And if they come back and say, well, it's US titles, say, tough luck, you should get out of federal system then. If, as David Wayne Miller, I'll get that name right soon, as he pointed out, if I'm married in this country, I'm married in every single country in this world. If I'm married in this country and I decide to go to a different country and get married, how the hell would they know that I've performed bigamy and prosecute me in that country or any other country? How do they know this? Because it's one system. Just as your national insurance is one system. Number, national insurance number.
The Western world's one banking system under one.
Yeah. They gave you the illusion that you're only married there. But the proof is always, it's out there. Because bigamy is a thing that you can be prosecuted in any country in the world. If I'm married in the US, I'm married in every single country in the world. You've got to get your head around that. You have to get your head around that. It's the same system. So they give you the illusion it's US codes. Well, no, it's not US codes. That's the fact. That's the cargo. That's the cargo. This is the point of reference from a reference library where you can go and find the laws pertaining to my statement, my claim, my accusation. That's just a code. That's just a reference point. As if you go to a library and SBI number blah, 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 go and get the book. That's all that means. Yeah. Yes, of course, they will use and they are trained in deflecting skills, which he's quite good at. Deflecting skills. They're just deflecting you. A crime is a crime. Bigamy is bigamy. Sorry, not bigamy. Bigamy. Yeah, you understand where I'm going with this, guys? If you interfere with the mail in any country of the world, that's a federal crime. It's called a federal crime. Okay?
Does that mean post that isn't registered, recorded, special delivery, and if you just got a stamp on it, because I've lost post that I've got a stamp on, it's just, and there's no way for them to track it. So is it...
What's your question?
My question is, you said they're not allowed to interfere with post, but is there a definition of what post actually is? Is it something that only has special delivery, recorded delivery? Because you can have different categories.
Okay, I'll answer that question. Would you put it into a red box in this country?
Yes.
That's post.
Their responsibility.
But they tend to treat it very differently when you go to the counter. It's like if you
What counter?
Well, when you go to the counter, they get special delivery. Or
Okay, can you just kind of refine your question a little bit more for me so I can understand it better?
Why is there special delivery recorded delivery if it's all post?
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
We're learning.
The ordinary postage stamp is just the fee for freight for the cargo from going from this point to another, which is protected, full stop. The other mechanisms that you can use is like first class, second class, guaranteed delivery. It's just an opportunity to make different types of money, except the registered one. Except the registered one, the one that in this country costs £6 something. When you take that, when you take that, and do you remember they have lots of stickers on them, peeling off stickers. You stick one of those on inside the letter, and you keep a copy of it, and you stick that other sticker onto the copy that you have with the wet ink pen autograph. That becomes an original document guaranteed under federal law, because, now listen very carefully to that mechanism and the importance of the postmaster, what it means. This is physics. I'm going to go straight into physics. I have sent a registered letter to Errol. That registered letter is guaranteed by the post office that it will get to him and him only. And that the way that they do that is that it's delivered to him, and he has to produce evidence of his ID issued by the same people that are delivering the letter. Recognized forms of identification. Passports belong to them. Driving license belong to them because they're vessels. No, listen to the physics of it. No person, no man, woman, can exist in that territory, the territory of the postal code pertaining to his letterbox, which is treated, which is another word of saying ordnance survey map coordinations, can exist in that same space, in that same time, with that same name, with that same two different type of ID, to be in possession of that document, contract, vessel, full stop. It's a near perfect system, been running for thousands of years. You've now got yourself a near perfect delivery system. That's physics, folks. That's physics. And when you take those stickers and you stick them onto your document, a copy of it, they become original. That's called a paper trail. Paper trail of evidence. Do you see the power of it? It's so simplistic, it's quite beautiful. And it's that beauty in which I use to incriminate them with. The lie, in order to perform a lie, I have to convince you of the authenticity of what I am selling you, and then underneath slip in the poison. For the things that we do, which is health, and what he does, which is health, I'm going to take you to a slightly different subject, just to bring in a little bit of the health side. In the 80s, there were an organization, went global, called the Guru Busters. Do you remember them? They used to go around and exposing all these voodoo doctors and all these shaman that were performing all sorts of tricks and stuff. And they were 100% authentic, self-funding, so on and so forth. A perfect vehicle to take over. because they spend all their money, all their time, creating real authenticity into that organization, and they are who they say they are. Once that's fully fledged and they got all the reputation that they need, the monsters come in, infiltrate it, and they use that same body of thought, that reputation they built themselves in the 80s and 90s, and now they go after not the real people, that the charlatans. They go after people like him, people like me, people like them. Yeah? To discredit it. And they run on it with the head of what it was in the 80s, which is a very reputable organization that really did bust the gurus, the charlatans of our world. And they use that, and in between they go after. That group are known as the skeptics. They're known as the skeptics. Now, remember, in order to be able to sell the lie, you have to create a near perfect system that appeals to all of your senses, or most of the senses. And Richard Dawkins is the one that set it up, the skeptic movement. And what did he create? The selfish gene, an ideology that is beautifully wired to the conscious mind to believe that you are individuals, that everything is survivalistic, and he created an ideology. Ideology means it's self-fulfilling prophecy. When it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, it just goes round in your brain forever, because you're locked into the pattern of survivalism. Everything is fight or flight. Everything is preying on each other. You are either a predator or a prey. Nothing in your nature is like that. Who gives you the illusion? The people that make the wildlife documentaries. What do they show you? You go to places of nature, like your back garden, it doesn't quite right. It doesn't see it. It's not really there. But if you're running on that ideology, you only get to see what they've told you. Like, for example, you buy a nice car that you wanted, and all of a sudden, lots of people are driving that car around because it's a observation-created reality. Observation-created reality, running on soft wire. That's the biological framework of that mechanism. It's called soft wiring. Your brain runs on soft wire, or the surface area. Picks up an ideology, makes connections, and long as those connections are there because you are seeing it and it's in your society, it's in your TV program, so on and so forth, those connections remain real and it seems real. It gives you the perception it's real. If the illusion is taken away, the synapses break and it goes looking for new patterns, and they create these ideologies for you. Marxism, selfish gene, all of it. Conservative, Labour, whatever it is, they just create it for you because your brain will go looking for those connections. The legislation says they have judicial immunity. You believe that? Of course you do. And there's the truth of it. They don't have anything of the sort. The illusion is that they're never there. If they're not there, they can claim anything they want.
Today, it appears a lot of mail is coming into us by privatised companies. Is that still under the jurisdiction of the EPU?
If it doesn't say Royal Mail, it's not.
Right, so that's how they're getting away with it, isn't it? Because they're not using the EPU.
Yeah.
They can't get done for mail fraud.
Correct.
And virtually all the mail that's coming from the public side today does not include a stamp.
Full stop. Yeah. And that's why you must not be billed by email. It's very important. You must get your things by post. If it's by email, it doesn't mean anything. There's no real joinder. So there is no paper trail.
It hasn't got a stamp on it, and I don't recognise it.
Yeah.
And that's Royal Mail or UPU, not one of these independent companies, even
ENT and all them, yeah.
Even though the post would be delivered, but that's a different.
Now hold on a minute. If the postman has delivered it, then it's gone through the post office sorting office. That's instantly under jurisdiction of the UPU, post office, postmaster general. If it's hand delivered, it's just one private person trying to make contact with another. If it's delivered purely by anybody else other than the postman, it's got nothing to do with anything. Yeah, it's just people leafleting. It's like me selling pizza, whatever it is, you know, Chinese takeaway. Just treat it as treat it as that. So let's just hold your question for a second. You were going to ask me something?
No, I was just going to say, in November I got taken to the magistrate court.
I can't hear you.
In November I went to the magistrate court for a speeding offence. They said I hadn't responded to the paperwork. They have the CPS there, it's cost them a lot of money, and she basically kept asking me what date I posted it and why I hadn't posted it before I was out of the country, so I could answer it within 24 days. And then she asked me what part of the form I filled out. So I said to, doesn't say in anything that you sent me that I'm going to have to be answerable today for anything that I filled out. You brought me to court because you said you have failed to receive something I've sent you in the post. Therefore, bring the post office to court, because once I put it in that post box, it's their property. Didn't know what to say. The magistrate found me not guilty, and so I went.
Yeah. Lovely, lovely. When it becomes...
And it's just common sense sometimes.
It is, yeah.
I said to him, you're asking me questions.
Guys, no mini conversations for the time being. Just keep concentration, because somebody is sharing something quite relevant to you, which I'm going to up the ante with a little bit. So what she's saying is, if they haven't got it, then it's a mail problem. You go and sort it out with the post office. Yeah. Now, the way that you can prove that has happened is that you can have your document notarized. That just simply means having a witness, an autograph across it, where you would put it underneath. And notarized simply means to stick your thumbprint on there at the end of your autograph. Now that becomes two people, and two people make corporation, which means it holds a lot of weight. All the documents that I prepare have notarizations on them. Yeah. If you are a lone individual, you're not going to get very far. Yes, there are exceptions, I do agree. But you won't get very far working by yourself. If you don't have people backing your document, it ain't going to happen. Okay? So you must have it notarized. And thank you very much for that. It's really common sense in many respects. And common sense is something that you guys don't really have. And when I say you guys, it's an accusation. So you can sympathize with the general public, how difficult it is for them to navigate through this corridor of madness. Yeah. Now, I now understand what he's saying, which is that the letter that he's receiving in the envelope doesn't carry the date in which it went through the sorting office. And it carries a barcode which you cannot read. The answer to that is, I don't know. But now that you pointed it out to me, I'll go and find out.
Sometimes they send you letters.
So what Sharia is saying, am I okay to mention your name? Yeah. What he's saying is that they are deflecting and they are avoiding, yeah, which are all the tactics of liars, cheats, and so on and so forth. You have facts, and as Miller points out, you know, liars figures don't lie. If it carries a barcode, the barcode can be read, yeah, and that is that. I'm sure if you go to your post office, I've just thought of something, and yeah, and they'll scan it, and it will be barcode. It will have carry a barcode, and it goes into a ledger in the UPU. I know it's computerized, but it's there. Otherwise, they can't track mail.
And you could prove they are lying by giving. When you send like a...
The person that can answer that is the postmaster in the post office. I'm only the postmaster of that document. So if you go into your post office, they'll be able to answer all your questions. Not sub post office, a post office. Okay, they'll be able to answer your question, and it will have postmaster on it. If you go to the US, first when you walk in, you will see quite clearly posted postmaster office. If you've got problems, you just go to him and talk to him. Courtrooms that can be held there. The trials of presidents can be held in there. Yeah, as Miller pointed out, when he was in Hawaii, the Postmaster General's court was completely destroyed overnight, so he doesn't walk in and have those judges prosecuted for mail fraud and all sorts of things. They leveled it in one day, so he can't use that courtroom.
That's an act of war.
Yeah, it is treason. Yeah, sorry.
Could I just make a little statement of something that I saw in the Bills of Exchange Act 1832? They actually do talk. 1882 is it?
Yeah.
Yeah, they do talk about the use of the mail service and the settlement with promissory notes once you've put the document into the mail service. Settlement has actually been achieved at that point.
Yeah, because they stopped taking pound of flesh for money that you owe people or they owe you, which is what they agreed upon. And this maritime law that we're speaking about of what they call a prepaid account came through maritime when they said, well, all sailors will be now paid in advance into an account to safeguard their journey, and if they die in the process of being a sailor, then their wives and children can to get their money, which is the agreement that they came with internationally, and that's called a prepaid account. Your prepaid account is where your the International Monetary Fund puts their money into your prepaid account. Yeah, they float you for whatever it's worth, and all the real sweat equity goes out in exchange for fictional currency or fiat currency. And that's called a prepaid account. Please don't ask me how to access the prepaid account. I'm not going there. Okay, I don't know. I don't know. Yes.
Could we write to the Postmaster General, the woman that is sitting as the Queen, as Postmaster General, and inform her that raw mail is being used?
Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. That's
We've been receiving
Yeah, that's right. That's her role. That's her role. You see, the way that I know that is because her face is on there. That's how I know. Yeah, which is what we're doing. So, shall we take a break? Okay, I think I understand. Yeah. How is anybody a judge? Particularly David is what she's asking. You stick a postage stamp on, autograph it across, makes you judge. Full stop. You have a driving license, you're in your car, you're driving about, you're a judge. Because anybody that's less than a judge cannot navigate their roadworks and so on and so forth. You're a judge. If you're a pedestrian, you're a judge. These things are never outside of your zone. Their belief, their system is to get you to believe a judge has special ranking, that it's somehow specially endowed. Nothing of the sort, that you have to go through a particular process. The story that you've been hearing throughout this room is that they are not who they say they are. A judge is a person that's just walking from A to B, whether that's on paper or anything else, navigating his way through life, calculating the sums and differences as they go. That's a psychological phrase. I could add volume to that if you want, which would go back into the world of psychology. If you want, I can do that for you, but I need to know that, yes, what you guys want me to do. So those ones who want me to say yes. Do you want to know how it works?
Yes. Yes. How does it work? How does it work?
For me to do anything, for me to even move this from this, your subconscious throws out a grid pattern in front of you. It's all round you. It's all round you. And what it does, it calculates through the grid pattern the sums of differences, and it makes it so precise to be able to move this into my hand or play football or anything like that. That's called navigating your way through life, being poetic, calculating the sums and differences as I do. That's what makes you a judge. Now, when you watch films like The Matrix, you see a grid pattern, but this is what your subconscious does. It creates a grid pattern to measure the distances. When an eagle sweeps through and picks up a mouse by its ear and moves off, that's what it's doing. It's using the grid pattern. It's constantly calculating the sums and differences of those boxes in 3 dimension. It's calculating the difference between this angle and this angle as the difference, known as the sums and differences. The subconscious does that. Long as that process is in your brain, you are the judge of who you are. You're going to have to understand that.
So he's not the judge like we have on our minds, dressed in black in the court. He's as judge as you are.
No, no. He knows the bureaucracies. He knows the bureaucracies to make himself a federal judge. He knows the bureaucracies. It's in you if you understand the language. It's the language, it's the parlay that puts you in the framework that you are in, which is George Bernard Shaw. Yeah, Fabian. It's the language that moves you in and out of whatever jurisdiction. Parliament means to parlay. Yeah? Members of a talking shop. That's why I don't do petitions. To who? To a talking shop? No, come. That's...
He says he's Freemason.
Okay. So what does a Freemason mean?
Stonework.
Yeah, that's correct. That means a Freemason. Does anybody know the origins of Freemasonry, how it all started and so on and so forth?
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. I'll add a little bit of volume. Listen very carefully. Builders, right up to a certain point in your time, I think it was even like 80s, had full immunity. You had to go to the Crown in order to persecute a builder, because they're the only ones that knew and understood geometry and so on and so forth. It was very prominent in the Dark Ages. That's how Freemasonry and all those sort of things came about, is that they were free Mason stoneworkers. The history lies in that. The stuff that you're talking about, well, that's that. The golf club, which I don't belong to, is full of pedophiles. What are you telling me? Yeah? The world that I live in is full of this and full of that. The football club that I support belongs to a Russian mafia boss. Come on. Yeah? You guys have to deal with these things yourself. If you got a problem with it, you deal with it. Yeah? So if you're talking about the negative connotations of becoming a Freemason, as to opposed to being free and a Mason who does a lot of work to liberate the Freemason movement, because it's in that book how they captured it, in Jack Otto's book, how they captured these organizations. It's all there. If you've got a problem with it, then you have to deal with it. I'm not here to deal with those sort of things. I'll give you a clue. And I was talking to Ray about it, I believe. Anybody tell me the difference between a Illuminati and Luminati?
First letter.
Illuminati means people of no light. Luminati means people of the light. They exist, just like those titles. Yeah? It's just the language, you don't hear it. You don't hear the difference, Illuminati and Illuminatis. Yeah? They're openly telling you, we are the people of no light. We are the people of light. We are the people that are free Masons, free. Yeah? It's in the language.
I don't understand. Stonework free, but what then is a Freemason? What is... I don't understand. Is a Freeman?
That's what it means.
But what is a stoneworker then?
Yeah, it's a free stoneworker. A free stoneworker. If you wanted to prosecute a builder, say in the 18th century, you need to have the permission from the king or queen of that time, because they're the only ones that had the skills of geometry, mathematics, building skills, and so on and so forth. And it was considered a sacred trade, a sacred profession that was full of knowledge. Yeah, and they were free. Judicial immunity. They weren't, of course. But the point is, if you go into the word and you create these negative connotations for yourself, then that's the world that you enter. And I'm not responsible for that. Yeah? That means you're running on connotation again. Somebody create a negative connotation, you run with it. If you believe Freemasons are all what they say you are, then let it be. I'm not responsible for that connotation. Yeah?
So then, when you said like the queen, the king, they have immunity, so then Freemason is the same, isn't it? They are the free men.
I don't understand the nature. Freedom? Sorry, go on.
Just to muddy the waters just a bit more, the French word for Freemason is franc-maçon. Franc-maçon.
What's that mean?
That means frank, honest, you know.
Okay, well, thank you.
Truth.
Well, there you go.
Maçon is house.
Yeah?
Maçon means house.
Maçon means a mason or a builder or stoneworker.
Yeah. Okay. By this time, you guys should have an understanding that there are parallel agencies running in your world, and there are parallel organizations. If you want to speak to the Illuminatis, go ahead. If you want to speak to the people of the light, then ask the people of the Illuminatis. If you want to know what the facts are of a particular chemical that we work with, don't go and ask the World Health Organization, go and ask the Poison Index. They're running parallel to you. If you believe the judge is the king and the captain of his vessel, then help yourself to all the statutes that you want that give you that judicial immunity. If you want the titles pertaining to the lie of it, it's there. All these things are in front of your face. It's called open flags operation. Your conscious mind cannot accept it, and hence cognitive, mental dissonance is created. And I thought it would be an opportunity to screen a small footage lasting a few minutes of cognitive mental dissonance, almost like a cartoon, but grasp the magnitude of what it's saying, and you get to see the explanatory depth that it offers. Thomas Carlyle said the value of a principle is the number of things that it explains. And the things that I offer are those principles. It's the number of things that it explains. The bureaucracies that I'm showing you is the number of things that it explains. If it explains 1001, then I'll reach for 10,001, and I'll keep going with it until it cannot explain anymore, then I chuck it out of the window. Yeah? The value of these things is the number of things that it explains, the solutions that it provides you with. Do you understand what I'm saying? I should say, do you comprehend what I'm saying? Because to understand means to stand underneath me. You guys up to speed as to what I'm saying? You must look for the explanatory depth, not the connotations, not the presumptions of the meanings of those words. It is just a word. Yeah? If I become a Freemason tomorrow, are you guys going to dismiss me? Are you going to burn me at the stake? Because you are likely to. Because that's how maddening all this is. You may be slightly losing track of what I am saying. Does here anybody know a little bit about Freemasonry and 30-degree Masons, 34-degree Masons? 34, is it? 34 degrees? Listen to what I have just told you. You've gotta have to listen, and I'm sorry to patronize you. Listen to what I said. Freemasonry stops at 33. Freemasonry stops at 33 degrees. How the hell can it? Everything ends at 360 degrees. That's the illusion. Because you believe what you are told. I've told you the truth. Degree is the truth. That's the explanatory depth which I'm pointing out to you. Listen to the words. How can a degree finish at 33? That's how absurd, and I'm sorry to say this to you guys, and I do like you guys, that's how absurd you are. Yeah? 2 times 2 equals 3. Yeah. So if you speak to Dr. Cole, he will tell you about the Club of 300, the Committee of 300, which he writes very authoritatively about, but missing one point. Where's the other 60 gone? That's the one you go looking for, and you've now into the world of who they are. The bureaucracies that I'm teaching you is the conduits that they travel through. That's the value of what is being said here. Not Freemasonry, not the assumptions, not the 30-degree Masons. It starts here, stops here. Within that sentence is all the things that you need to know. 30-degree Masons. If you believe that, you've just broken laws of mathematics. Yeah? There's 360 of them. That's the full circle. You go to a masonry hall, it's a round circle.
If he is a 92nd degree Mason.
Ask him. I never bothered to ask him. Because for me, it works, and he's educated me to a point where I can do this for entire nations. I'm not going to question it, and I'm able to safeguard so many people using his bureaucracy. It's the principle, it's the behavior that exposes the words, not the words and contrary behavior. Paleface speaks with forked tongue. He's never lied to me about anything. Everything that he says, I've referenced. Hence, I spent 2-3 years studying this damn thing, qualify every statement that he's made. I've done that. I qualified every single statement. Ask him. I used to disappear for a whole month. It's just don't disturb me 16 hours a day. Qualify every single statement.
I think we're looking for absolutes here, and there aren't absolutes.
Well, thank you very much. That's a good insight. When I rang Miller about a particular case somewhere, I think it's, yeah, he said to me, quite often people ring me, Mark, and ask me for standards. Every judge is different. Every judge is different. Okay? Some judges will bow to you. Other judges will spit venom at you. Yeah? There are no standards in this. It's you and you. Full stop. It's you and it's you. Would I be right in saying so, Toby? That's all there is.
I think something very pertinent you said was, I can't make judgments, and I think that is so key.
Well, thank you. I cannot pass judgment on you.
No.
I cannot. I won't do it.
No.
Yeah?
You can expand on that, but I think that's a good premise to go from.
Yeah. It's about creating closure in your life. How much do you know about yourself? Full stop. How much do you think you know about that person? Full stop. Yeah? Probably 50,000 trillion times less than you know yourself. Which is obvious, isn't it? Let's go into the world of mental cognitive dissonance. Let's take one more thing.
No, perfect.
Okay, because what we are actually experiencing is cognitive dissonance. Your conscious mind is kicking in. It's saying reject, reject, reject. It's known as the old sphere fighting with the new sphere of understanding. The synapses, and Richard Dawkins is an expert in this, Richard Dawkins that I mentioned, about how that frame, that sphere of understanding, the actual synapses in your brain are now fighting not to break those connections, because it's invested a lot of energy, it's invested a lot of beliefs, emotional energy in maintaining that formation, and it doesn't want to break. So it will fight to regain control, which is called left brain dominance. Tony Wright writes about it wonderfully. So this particular footage of mental cognitive dissonance is quite comical, but it's lovely. Yeah? What I would like you guys to do is engross yourself with it. Okay? It's called stop and correct. You are duty-bound, honor-bound, as the citizens of this country or any other country, when you see a wrong being performed, to stop and correct it. Full stop. The manner in which you do it is to write it in the first-hand knowledge, not opinions or anything, first-hand knowledge. I saw this police officer do this. I saw this council of our person do this. This person issued this letter, and you notarize it just as I've described it to you, just as I've described it to you in all the previous videos, using those bureaucracies, and you put it into the federal system, the post office system, so they take delivery of it, and you call it a stop and correct notice. And you write everything in the here and now jurisdiction. Yeah? That's how easy these things are, and they can't ignore it. When I put something on, something like that for Michael, they withdrew the claim instantly. Instantly, because they knew the game was up. That took what? 6 hours of work and no more than 6 sentences. But each sentence was qualified. That's the stage where I am at. I have to look for the titles and so on and so forth. Miller can just reel it off his head. I can't. This is where Miller's technology kicks in. Because if you put that 200 hours in, you'll be able to access his technology, and then you'll be able to speak to me. Because you'll be able to tear that statement to pieces, because it's using fraudulent language. Yeah. By this stage, you know when a vowel followed by 2 consonants is a lie. You point it out, already have jurisdiction over them. And when you point out the inconsistencies that's being used, and there is a single fact on that document, you've now got yourself a fraudulent document extracting money from you, and then you talk to them in the language of the here and now, putting those titles in, those things disappear. There's a saying, and I was going to share it with you. We have done so much with so little. It's the end sentence, that we are now qualified to do anything that we want, and I'm qualified to do anything that I want, and I can live on less than £5 and do what I do. I kid you not. Yeah? If you think you need lots of money to do what I do, you've just created a dissonance. I had to bridge it. I had to find it within myself to be able to do that, because fear did kick in. It's not usual for me not to have money. Yeah? I bridged it. I thought, hey, you know, daily bread, that's all I'm promised. Daily bread, not yearly bread. You know, a stockpile of something. That's all I'm ever promised. The here and now jurisdiction, this moment. I cannot tell you what's going to happen the second. I can tell you what's going to happen now, nothing else. And that's the only thing I'm in control of. If you can bring that, if you can bring yourself to do that, you will be able to do lots and lots of things. Lots of things. If you believe money is a barrier for you to do what you need to do, it ain't going to happen. Because all the money in the world is not going to be able to create that illusion for you. Yeah? This is much about personal development as it is about anything. Thanks to the work of people like Russell and Miller, we now have technologies, verbal technologies, written technologies, that give us power back to where it belongs. I don't even use words like power because they're all fictional language. There is only man, there is only me. There is man and there is woman. That is all. Yeah? I have no power. I certainly don't have will. I have thinking. That's what I have, and that's what I share with people. And that can buckle an entire government. And you'll see that happen.
Come on, stop there. What do you mean you don't have will?
I just told you what I just told you. I don't have will. I do have thinking. One of the things that they did, the corrupt people that corrupted your language, is that they took the meanings out, they took the words out and gave you prefixes. They gave you prefixes. And where there needs to be less words, they put in more words. So you can never access your own thoughts. Most of the prefixes are all just lies. Look it up in the dictionary in Google right now. Any word that begins with a vowel followed by 2 consonants is the very direct opposite of what you think it was. Just look it up. You've got cell phones, Google will give you all that information. Any word that starts as a single vowel, used as a single syllabus, syllable, beg your pardon, single syllabus, is a lie. Look it up. It means the direct opposite. Look up the word pharmaceutical, what it means, what you thought it meant. It will say in plain sight in dictionary, it's the maker of poisons. And that's the power that you have, because you caught them out telling the truth.
What was that? Every vowel followed by two consonants?
Yeah, you could just, it's all over the Facebook, it's all over Miller's videos, it's on my videos. Just look it up. It's there in plain sight. Just know those two things, just those two things, you can disqualify most documents. Yeah? Just those two things which I said will disqualify it. You point out the judge, well, you know, AB means no, so exactly what is it that you're talking about? Yeah?
So what was the second thing? The vowel and two consonants, and the other thing?
Is any word, any vowel used as a single syllable, I beg your pardon, is also a lie. And there you'll see who's operating that system. You'll find it's the people that are corrupting your language and so on and so forth. Just like Illuminatis and Illuminatis. Now you know there's a huge difference. You now can speak to the right people. Yeah.
Can I just say, in all your documents, if there's any sentences with the words, and there's more than one space, you know, if you were typing, you hit one space, that means all the sentences are disconnected.
It's called a break in.
So it's a load of nonsense.
It's called a break in continuity. A break in continuity. They're not following one sentence with the other. Yeah, that's a lie. That's a lie. Do you remember I said about the shopping list? I can give you a shopping list of all the items that I want, but if I give you all the shopping list of all the items I don't want, you'll be searching for it for the rest of your life. Know what you know, and those are the only things that matter. Yeah, you look up those two things, and it will be right in front of your face, and it was always in front of your face, just like any terror attack as opposed to a guerrilla attack. It's always in front of your face. Yeah? Yeah.
So those of us who are here with maybe current or live issues, having listened to you today, what would you recommend as the next step?
The next step is listen to these talks, work out what's being said on a personal level for yourself. In other words, make it your own. Make it your own. Personalize it. None of these general statements. Really personalize it and go to work on it. Like some of the people here have done. So you have to personalize it. You have to take full jurisdiction of it, rather than a philosophical statement that doesn't apply to you. If you've got a problem, you can apply all these things to it. You're going to have to learn at some point, just like Toby and everybody else, to syntax. Yeah? And I'll hold another seminar, since a healthy number has turned up, say in 5 or 6 weeks' time, wherever it is, and you guys come along and I'll teach you how to syntax those documents. Okay? Meanwhile, for some proprietary work, look up David Wayne Miller's videos on syntaxing. Learn it. Speak to me. If it's open flags, what's known as flag etiquettes, they leave you alone. They can only character assassinate you, as opposed to physically assassinate you. Use open flags. Put everything out in the open. Use Facebook, YouTube. Make friendship with each other. Okay? I go out of the way to put it into the truth, as it were. Yeah? I make sure that they know what I'm doing. Anything else?
Who are they?
Who are they? Those people that monitor these things. That's they are. Are you referring to a particular group of people?
Well, I mean, lots of people talk about they, but they may have different ideas as to who they are.
NSI, Tuesdays,
Council, what their business is, what they like, what their agenda is, what their will is, because they seem to have a collective will, don't they? You don't have a will, but they have a collective will.
If you say so, they have, yeah.
from my observation, they do. Because they've written about it and they've spoken about it.
I'm not quite sure if you're making a statement or asking a question.
Right. I will ask you who your concept of they is.
Okay.
That's all.
Can I have an opportunity to answer?
Sorry?
Can I have an opportunity to answer? Who are they? Devolution. That's who they are. Devolution means every single council is the government of the territory that they're running. It's not a territory, it's a state. So I live in Newham. It's the state of Newham, and they have all the power that a centralized government has to control me. So they think. That's who they are if it's regional. If it's country-wise, it is wherever you are at that moment. So if it's Errol, it is Westminster Council. That's who they are. If it's global, it's usually the ones that are controlling the UPU. That's who they are. If you want to know their names, look up the IMF family. Once you found their names, the names will change the very next day, because they change names all the time. When we spoke to Russell, I went to Montana to speak to Russell. What he told me is when he had a meeting with the IMF family, he was talking to this gentleman. You know, these are some of the most powerful people. These are some of the most powerful people in the world. One particular one, he said he was walking down a corridor to explain to him the manipulation of the language, and that you don't really have what you think you have. That man, when he was walking along, dived into the nearest corner and put his hand up and asked his bodyguards to take this man away, and started shivering in his boots. I know that behavior. That's a xenophobe. But they got you to believe xenophobia is the fear of Jewish people. It is not. Xenophobes are people that are frightened of strangers. They cannot do what you do. They have no commercial energy. They have no creative energy. They cannot create sweat. They cannot create sweat equity by the sweat of their brow. They have none of it. The level of disability is quite profound in them. The fear element is quite profound. It's called xenophobia. Look it up. Like all things, dualities in meaning, triple meanings, and so on and so forth. So that's what Russell shared with me. Yeah, he started shivering because Russell saw that he is not who we say he was. Yeah, and this is a man that would run an entire defense force, arms force as well. You have arms force and you have weapons force. Yeah, you can be a licensed arms dealer, but not a licensed weapons dealer. Only the world of lies can perform that.
The fear that if you could say, the IMF families or that grouping lives in is palpable. Some of you might have well gone to the Bilderberg event that was staged at Watford. The hotel there, for a tea party, according to our wonderful politician Kenneth Clark, was surrounded by a £10 million double razor-wired electrified fence. If that doesn't show fear.
Can I add a little bit? Yes, I will come on to that. I was going to his dance club on Friday, and I don't have a car or anything, so I use the transport. And I got off a train station called Arnold Grove. Is it Arnold? Arnold's Grove. Beautiful looking station, very ornate. I looked around. There were 33 cameras looking at me. There were cameras from the platform surrounding me, you know. I kid you not, go there. It's a beautiful looking station, very ornate. The cameras are everywhere. They're looking at, what is it that I'm saying? I'm expanding upon what you are saying. The level of fear in these people is quite profound. This is a species of man and woman that exists in your world. They're called xenophobes. You can meet them. They will see you. But they'll see you under their terms and conditions in full surroundings. If you have that condition, you'll go to great lengths to protect that. It's called xenophobia. It's not the fear of Jews. Get rid of that. Yeah? They create these dualities, these parallel agencies, Illuminatis, Freemasons. So, sometime during this month, we'll be going into court to teach people that I'm teaching at the moment how to control judges. Okay? So I will put it out there. It's up to you to come along and witness that. Okay? So I'll be doing those things as a demonstration. And I will put myself on the line, as it were, to teach you guys how to do this for yourself. Once you learn it, you have to teach other people how to do it. If you don't and you keep it with yourself, I'll leave it up to you. Okay?
How will you get that to us, man? That when you're doing the call base?
It's up to you to make contact with me by text message, making sure that I have your details. As you know, I don't ask for your details. Listen, guys, you don't want to go into court by yourself, and at any cost you want to get out of the courts until you're good enough to be able to navigate your way through. For some people, this is not a luxury, and as a result, I've helped a few people and safeguard them. But if you go into court, you're very vulnerable by yourself. You always want to go in as a corporation, as a fellow, okay? A fellowship.